Chapter 1441. Although he didn't say anything, there was an oppressive aura around him. This aura caused those who were eager to rush over to kill the devil to freeze. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly, let alone attack Ning Xuema. "Brother D?" Lu Xin's expression changed slightly. She called out softly and approached him. Ning Xuema slightly raised her head to look at him. The two people's gazes collided with each other, separated by a distance of several dozen meters. It was as if they were fighting invisibly. His eyes were too deep and cold. When he looked at her, there was no expression on his face. It was hard to tell what he was feeling. After thinking and missing him for so long, she finally saw him again. However, it was under such circumstances. Her heart hurt, but it hurt so much that it felt numb. Ning Xuema wasn't late, but she wasn't early either. She felt that she was no longer a disciple of the Sun Moon sect. They were probably enemies. Therefore, she didn't come here to deliver a greeting card. Instead, she came here invisibly. Although the Sun Moon sect's enchantment was strong, it couldn't stop her, who was familiar with the Sun Moon sect's enchantment. Furthermore, she came from the sky and landed on the Heavenly Sound Peak. The Heavenly Sound Peak originally had an enchantment. Only the disciples of the Venerable Sovereigns could enter at certain times with the help of their jade tokens. Ning Xuema used to be the most special one. She didn't need to use her jade token. She could use the patterns on her palm to press down on the enchantment at any time. This time, when Ning Xuema landed on the peak, she didn't find the enchantment protecting the peak. To be exact, there was no enchantment above. She came in easily. She stood there in a daze for a moment. When she first became his disciple, she suffered a lot because of his enchantment. There was once when she almost drowned in his wall-like enchantment. He didn't remove the enchantment and didn't even change it. Now, was it because of Lu Xin? Was Lu Xin an idiot who dispelled enchantments? Or was it because of today's engagement ceremony? Ning Xuema walked around the Heavenly Sound Peak with her chaotic emotions. The bamboo forest was still the same as before, and nothing in the surroundings seemed to have changed. The entire Tianin Peak was quiet, and not a single person could be seen. When she finally made up her mind and went to the main hall where Xinjiuli lived, she was stunned for a long time. Xinjiuli's main palace was still there, and it didn't look any different. Just like the rumors said, the side hall she used to live in was no longer there. The two sides of the main hall were empty, just like her empty heart. Back then, when she heard the rumor that he had demolished the side palace she lived in, although she didn't say anything on the surface, she still didn't believe it in her heart and still held on to a tiny bit of hope. Now that she had seen it with her own eyes, she had no choice but to believe it. It seemed like he really intended to cut off all ties with her at that time. She looked around again but could not find the second building. Rumor had it that Lu Xin was staying at Tianin Peak. Logically speaking, there should be a building built especially for her. Why couldn't he find it? Could it be that he would live in the same palace as Xinjiuli? This thought was like a fire burning in her chest. She thought for a while and decided to enter the main hall. The moment she entered, she smelled the light scent that belonged to Xinjiuli. She was dazed for a moment before she started to search in the main hall. The living room, the chess room, the practice room, the study room, the alchemy room, and finally his bedroom, there were traces of him everywhere in these places. Chapter 1442. His books, his paintings, the pots that he polished himself, the inkstone that he made himself. When everything that was once familiar to her appeared in front of her eyes again, her heart swelled. She once thought that she could let go of everything easily, but now she realized that they were deeply engraved in her heart and could never be forgotten. Coming back here again, she felt like a wanderer who had returned home. This feeling lasted until she reached the Dizun's bedroom. When Ning Xuema lived here later on, she had been to Xinjiuli's bedroom countless times. The door was always open to her, and Xinjiuli did not guard against her at all. Although there was a wizardry barrier around his bedroom, it was useless to her. This was because the Almighty had personally taught her how to break the wizardry barrier. He even supervised her to break it and made sure that there were no mistakes before letting her go. Later on, although he lost his memory and she became his real disciple, the wizardry barrier did not change. She could still enter and leave as she pleased. This time she found that the wizardry barrier was completely different. It was an extremely advanced wizardry barrier. The moment she arrived, she was bounced back by the wizardry barrier. She got up and looked at it for a moment. The wizardry barrier was awe-inspiring, and the psychokinesis flowing on it was extremely strong. It was not something that she could break at the moment. She would never be able to enter his chambers again. She paused at the door for a long time. Just as she was about to look elsewhere, she saw that the door of a hall beside her was half closed. This hall was also a part of Shinjoli's bedroom. It was usually used for storing miscellaneous items and no one lived here. Ning Xuema did not know what she was thinking, but she pushed open the door and walked in. Then she stood there in a daze. The area of the hall was not big and everything could be seen at a glance. All the miscellaneous items inside were gone, and in its place was a crystal bed. The light pink bed curtain was slanted on both sides. Neatly arranged bedding was revealed, and there were even a few pieces of women's clothes on the bed. There were a few other pieces of furniture in the hall. Although they were simple, they were very elegant. This room was obviously a woman's boudoir. There was also a faint fragrance in the hall. Needless to say, Lizine usually stayed here. No wonder she couldn't find Lizine's room in Tianyin Peak. It turned out that she lived here, next to Shinjoli's bedroom. Ning Xuema had spent quite a bit of time in this junk hall, because Shinjoli liked to pile up a lot of useless things here. To him they might be useless, but to Ning Xuema, there were still many treasures here. She often found things she liked in there. This room gave her the feeling of a treasure hunting room. Every time she came she would stay for a long time. But now she could not stay here any longer. The aura here was suffocating her. She turned around and left. If it was said that she still had some hope when she first came to the Heavenly Sound Peak, all of her hopes were dashed now. She stood there. As there was no enchantment barrier, she could faintly hear cheerful and elegant music coming from below. Then she saw fireworks rising into the sky. It was obvious that the engagement banquet below had begun. It turned out that she had risked her life to come back here just to attend his engagement banquet. The things were still the same, but the people were no longer the same. It turned out that she was the only one who stayed here, but he had already left. Baby, it turns out that you are destined to have no father in this life. It's okay. Chapter 1443. Don't worry, after I'm done with him, I'll take you to other continents and find a place where no one knows us. Ning Xuema's finger gently stroked her belly as she whispered to the little baby inside. She found a secluded corner and changed into a set of clothes. She was wearing the same set of clothes she wore when she danced the Pipa dance in the Chongkong country's palace. At that time, she shocked everyone with her dance and became his concubine with Shinjoli, who was disguised as Han Shanyue. That was how they got entangled later. She would end it where she started. This was in line with her usual style of doing things. Therefore, she hid herself and came to the main hall where the wedding was held. Then she appeared in a high-profile manner. Once her identity was exposed here, she would be attacked by the righteous people. She was mentally prepared, so she dealt with it calmly. She was very powerful now, so her eyes were very sharp. She saw Shinjoli's little tricks. When those people attacked her, it was Shinjoli who secretly stopped Yelu Jing and from helping. After not seeing her for 10 years, he really couldn't wait for her to die. If she died in front of him like this, he probably wouldn't even frown, right? She clearly broke those weapons and wasn't hurt at all, but her heart felt like it was stabbed by a knife. She pursed her lips and met his gaze without flinching. She smiled softly. Is this how the Sun Moon sect treats its guests? She said the first sentence after entering the door. Her voice was still cold. She kicked the scrap metal under her feet with the tip of her foot, and the pile of things made a clattering sound. You're not a guest of the Sun Moon sect, so they can't represent the Sun Moon sect. Shinjili said, his voice as cold as usual. Although she was mentally prepared, Ning Xuema's bright eyes still dimmed. So in his heart, she didn't even have the right to be a guest. She smiled. Then in the eyes of the Dizun, what am I? What are you doing here? Shinjili's voice was cold and emotionless. He didn't answer Ning Xuema's question. I came to sincerely consult the ancestor on a matter. Ning Xuema opened her mouth, her eyes firmly staring at him. I asked the ancestor to answer. What is it? The Dizun really wants to marry this Miss Lizine? This question was direct and sharp. Ning Xuema didn't beat around the bush. Although everything had proven her judgment, she still wanted to hear it from his own mouth. Only when she heard it from his own mouth would she be willing to completely give up. Shinjili paused for a moment. Before he could say anything, Lizine, who was beside him, said, Brother D will definitely marry me. We are now engaged. Then she grabbed Shinjili's arm possessively. D brother? What a mushy name. So there would be a day when this great god would be called brother by a woman? Ning Xuema's gaze landed on their intertwined arms. That place used to be hers alone, but now, Shinjili was a clean freak. Usually he wouldn't allow anyone to get close to him. Only she could get close to him. Right now, he was holding his fiancée in the crook of his arm. She was mentally prepared. She was here to end everything. She thought she could accept whatever she saw. but when he held someone else's hand, her heart still tightened. Chapter 1444. Her heart tightened inch by inch in her chest as if it was being pricked by a row of needles. Her hands and feet felt cold, but her expression did not change. Her face was calm as if she had turned a blind eye to his intimacy with someone else. She did not care about Luzine. She only wanted to hear it from Xinjuli personally. She would only believe it if he said it to her personally. When she asked this question, her heart tightened again as if she was drowning. This was her last hope. Although this hope was like a candle in the wind that could be extinguished at any time, she still did not want to give up. Xinjuli did not say anything. At such a distance she could not see his eyes clearly. She could only see that his thin lips were tightly pursed. She steeled her heart and asked again, "Ancestor, is this question very hard to answer?" Today she must get an answer. Even if this answer threw her into a bottomless abyss, she still wanted to confirm it. If she wanted to despair, then she would completely despair. She was also tired of being left hanging like this. Although she was wearing a veil and people could not see her face clearly, her expression and figure were the same as before, without any change. Especially that pair of eyes, which could captivate people's souls. If people were not careful, they would fall into her eyes and be consigned to eternal damnation. Xinjuli's eyes darkened as he said lightly, "It has nothing to do with you." In just a few words he had clearly cut off all ties between them and severed all ties. Ning Xuema smiled. Her smile made her eyes look like crescent moons. Everyone suddenly felt that although this Miss Ning was wearing a veil, her aura, figure and appearance were not inferior to that of Luzine, who was recently crowned as the #1 beauty in Tianxi continent. Especially this smile, which caused everyone's heart to tremble and tremble. Very good. Ning Xuema softly spat out these two words. Although he did not directly answer her, that sentence had clearly expressed his attitude. Her fate with him would end here. When a person made a decision, their heart would be calm. She took a step back and slightly bowed. "It has nothing to do with me indeed. Forgive me for asking. I wish Di Zun and Miss Lu to grow old together and be in love forever." Xinjuli's eyes darkened. He placed his hand on the armrest, and his sleeve covered his white fingertips. "Are you here to congratulate us?" Luzine stared at Ning Xuema's dress. "Your dress is very special. It looks like a dancer's dress." These words were filled with malice. Many of the people present were frequenters of the brothel, so they naturally knew what kind of clothes the dancers wore. Indeed, it was similar to what Ning Xuema was wearing at this moment, but it was not as exquisite as what she was wearing now. Hearing Luzine's words, many people laughed along with her. A straightforward person said loudly, "A demoness is a demoness. Even wearing such immoral clothes. You..." He didn't finish his sentence because the ancestor looked at him. The ancestor's gaze was extremely cold, causing the man's heart to tremble violently, and the blood in his body almost froze. He couldn't continue speaking. Xinjuli's gaze turned back to Ning Xuema. He deliberately avoided looking at her eye-catching dress, so as to not lose control and throw her or everyone present out. "Have you said what you wanted to say? That's all? Then you can leave." "I can go now." This was an order for her to leave. Yes, she would leave. But not now. Ning Xuema raised her eyebrows and smiled. She had been smiling since she came in. Chapter 1445. Xuema came here in a hurry and didn't prepare any gifts for the engagement of the ancestor and this lady. "It's quite rude of me. How about I dance for you as a gift?" Xinjuli's expression changed slightly. He was about to say something when Luzine interrupted. Okay. Brother D, there should be singing and dancing at the engagement banquet to liven things up. It's also good to let Miss Ning dance a song." Everyone knew that Xinjuli doted on Luzine very much. He listened to whatever she said. At this time, fawning on Luzine was the same as fawning on the ancestor. Many people echoed, Okay. It's also good to dance a song. It's the ancestor's engagement banquet. With a witch singing and dancing to liven things up, it'll be a good story. That's right. Helian Shao had been in a daze since the moment Ning Xuema appeared. At this moment he finally regained his senses. Seeing that everyone was mocking Ning Xuema, the anger in his heart surged. He couldn't help but jump in front of Ning Xuema. "Xuema, you don't have to ruin yourself like this. Come with me." He didn't care about anything else and pulled Ning Xuema's hand to leave. Whether she was a witch or not, he couldn't bear to see her suffer any grievances. He felt that he was going to explode from anger. He knew that Ning Xuema's 10 years of marriage was a taboo in the sect. He knew that those who violated this taboo would be punished. He also knew that it was very shocking for him to pull her away in front of everyone today. He might be expelled from the sect and hunted down. For example, when he held Ning Xuema's hand, he felt that the ancestor's gaze was on him. Although he didn't turn around to look, his sixth sense told him that the ancestor's gaze was definitely not friendly. But he couldn't care less. She was the most beautiful lady in his heart. Seeing her being humiliated was more unbearable and angrier than him being humiliated. He only wanted to bring her away from here safely. As soon as he took her hand and took a step forward, his hand was held by Ning Xuema. "Mian Shao, thank you." Ning Xuema's whisper drifted into his ears. Then he felt his body become light as he flew into the air. In the blink of an eye, he flew back to the chair he had been sitting on. Helian Shao. He felt like he was dreaming. It turned out that she had already seen him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known that he was originally sitting on this chair. The warmth of his butt was still on this chair. Jing jing jing. The sound of a pipa rang out. Ning Xuema no longer paid any attention to Shinjiuli's gaze on the stage. Her fingers plucked the strings of the pipa and began to play. The song she was playing was the one she had played in the vast sky country's imperial palace that day. After a few notes were played, it was as if everyone's heartstrings were being played. Everyone's heart felt as if ice water was flowing through it. The sound of the pipa was too clear and pleasing to the ears. Many people in the hall originally wanted to see Ning Xuema make a fool of herself. But after being shocked by the sound of the pipa, they couldn't bear to make a sound so as not to interrupt the heavenly sound of the pipa. Following the sound of the pipa, a picture scroll seemed to unfold in front of everyone's eyes. The boundless yellow sand stretched as far as the eye could see. The sound of the camel bell could be heard as the travelers gradually walked closer and further away under the setting sun. An ancient castle appeared in the anxiety of the travelers. The travelers cheered as they entered the castle, only to see mottled murals everywhere in the castle. On the murals, there were beautiful fairies dancing in circles with pipa in their hands. Following the beautiful fairies' dance, the dark castle regained its vitality. Oasis after oasis appeared in the vast desert. There were sweet rivers flowing, green grasses, and delicate flowers swaying in the wind. Chapter 1446. The more the stunning female immortal danced, the more anxious she became. The sound of the pipa also shook everyone's heartstrings more and more. Everyone was intoxicated by the music, forgetting where they were. Many people couldn't help but start to follow the rhythm of the pipa. Those who understood music even started to hum in their hearts. The big red dress spun in the air, the red muslin covering the entire hall, like a red spider lily spreading out on the road to the yellow springs, shocking everyone's eyes. The woman in red with black hair and a slender waist, holding the pipa and dancing was like a burning flame, like a witch of fire who had fallen into the mortal world, whose eyes would light up. Shinjiuli's fingers held the wine cup tightly, his thin lips tightly pursed. He vaguely felt like he had seen this scene before. Was this the scene he saw before he lost his memories? What did she come here for? Where did Shuilan die? She and Shuilan disappeared together for 10 years. 10 years. Just when he thought that she would never appear again, she finally came back and appeared so abruptly at his engagement party. What did she want? What was her purpose this time? Shui Yimo, since you've already chosen him, since you've chosen to be together with him, why did you come back? Looking for an opportunity to stab him again? Shui Yimo, if a person falls once, it's pardonable, but falling twice is stupid. Do you think this lord will fall a third time? This time this lord won't be fooled by you. He was very clear in his heart, but her dress made him angry for no reason. He spent a lot of effort to resist throwing her out. Only then did he manage to hold himself back from waving all the guests away with his sleeves. He sat on the chair watching her, watching as she danced more and more frantically. The sound of the pipa broke and the red dress fluttered. That touch of red spun in the hall, attracting everyone's attention. She kicked her legs and bent her waist. The pipa in her arms was sometimes slanted and sometimes flew horizontally. Her snow-white and soft fingers were plucking on the surface of the pipa. The wind from her sleeves blew up the robes of the guests she passed by. The veil on her face rose and fell with her dance, making her peerless beauty faintly discernible. She was like a flaming butterfly, as if she was bidding farewell to the past, as if she was going to be reborn from the ashes. She possessed an extremely shocking strength. At this moment, whether it was the sect master of a cultivation sect or the monarch of a continent, they all forgot the identity of the woman in front of them. They even forgot that she was dancing. They looked at her with eyes full of fanaticism, as if a devout believer had seen their Lord. No one thought that she dressed casually anymore. No one thought that she looked like a dancer anymore. It was as if she was born to dress like this and dance like this. Zhong? A sound similar to the sound of silk tearing pulled everyone's minds back from the fluttering pipa music. Everyone quivered and woke up from their daze. Where was the yellow sand, the oasis, the travelers, and the light flight? They were still in the hall, and Ning Xuema was standing on the red carpet. Her dress did not move. She had already stopped moving. She finished playing just like that? They hadn't heard enough yet. Everyone couldn't wait for her to play another song. Everyone's eyes couldn't help but focus on her. Ning Xuema lowered her eyes. Her fingers fell on the strings of the pipa. Suddenly, she smiled gently and raised her head. From the pipa we formed fate, and from the pipa we scattered fate. Dizun, the fate between you and me ends here. Shinjuli's expression changed. He suddenly stood up. You. Chapter 1447. Ning Xuema's 10 fingers suddenly moved, and with a loud jing sound, all the strings of the pipa broke. The surface of the pipa that was made of jade also broke into several pieces. Such an exquisite pipa was actually destroyed by her. The sound of the pipa breaking was like a heavy blow to Shinjuli's heart. His face turned pale, as if some kind of fate had been completely broken along with the pipa, and could no longer be pieced back together. Dizun, I wish you and this girl to grow old together and never leave each other. Ning Xuema's clear and cold voice resounded in the hall, ringing in everyone's ears. After saying this sentence, she no longer looked at Shinjuli and turned around to leave. The moment the pipa broke, her heart also seemed to break. That pipa was given to her by Shinjuli in the past. He said that her playing of the pipa was very good, but she lacked a good instrument, so he picked this one out from his storage space. He also said that in the future she would only play the pipa for him to hear and dance for him to see. Since she obtained this instrument, she had always hidden it in the deepest part of her storage space like a treasure, and would not take it out easily. She only played it once in a while in front of him. She clearly remembered that after she finished playing, she raised her red face and proudly asked him how he felt. At that time he did not speak, but directly pulled her into his arms and threw her down on the cushion at his feet. That time, the two of them kissed so intensely that they almost had an accident. From then on, the Dizun gave her another order. Without his permission, she was not allowed to dance or play this song. He was afraid that he would not be able to control himself. No matter if it was her or him, this pipa occupied a large part of their hearts. Now the only one who had that memory was her, and he had already forgotten it completely. The past was like poisonous wine pouring on her heart. The more intoxicated it was, the more painful it was now. Now he was about to become someone else's fiancé, and had nothing to do with her. She would use this dance to end it. She would use this pipa to end this ill-fated relationship. She left decisively and did not look back. Stop. Shinjuli finally opened his mouth and clenched his fists within his wide sleeves. Although he didn't remember the past and didn't even remember the pipa, seeing her destroy the pipa made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Ning Xuema turned a deaf ear to her. What should be ended had already been ended. There was no need for her to stay here any longer. Xueyemo. He called out her old name. Ning Xuema's footsteps didn't even stop. Her heart was filled with sorrow. So in his eyes she was still Xueyemo, and never Ning Xuema, but Xueyemo was already dead. How could she still exist in this world? Besides, Xueyemo had already used her death to pay off all the debts she owed him. Why did she have to bear the debts of her previous life? She didn't owe him anything. No matter if it was her previous life or this life, she no longer owed him anything. Xueyemo. He called out again. Her back view as she straightened her back and left was like a lonely peerless knife that cut across his heart and stung his eyes. He called her by her previous life's name. Even he didn't know what he wanted to do. Or was it to remind her and also to remind himself? Ning Xuema finally slowly turned her head, her gaze falling on him. Your Excellency, I think I need to say something. I'm Ning Xuema, not Xueyemo. The previous life is the previous life and this life is this life. Please don't confuse the previous life with the current one. I also don't need to bear the debts of my previous life. She laughed again. It was hard to say whether it was a smile of ridicule or something else. Also, no matter if it's the previous life or this life, I no longer owe you anything. Chapter 1448. After saying this, she didn't look at him again and turned to leave. The red carpet under her feet was soft and fragrant, but her heart was cold. The little baby in her belly suddenly woke up and kicked her in the belly a few times, causing her to stagger slightly. However, she immediately straightened her body and strode towards the door. Blood surged in her chest and heat rose in her eyes. It was so painful to break a wrist. It was so painful to tear a person from the heart. It was so painful that her stomach felt bitter and her eyes felt sour. She was miserable, but she didn't want anyone to see her weakness at this time. Therefore, she forcefully suppressed the boiling blood in her chest and walked steadily, decisively, and without any hesitation. Shinjuli stood there, his robe fluttering without wind. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but seemed to have thought of something. His eyes dimmed and he didn't say anything. Just like that, he watched her walk down the red carpet step by step and out of his line of sight. Everyone was stunned and no one could speak. Everyone present was a shrewd person. When they saw the undercurrent between Ning Xuema and Shinjuli, they seemed to have understood something. However, they did not dare to reveal the truth. Ning Xuema was the demon emperor of the demon realm, and she was also the ancestor's disciple. Everyone knew this. However, no one expected that the ancestor and Ning Xuema had such a relationship that caused people's imaginations to roam. The ancestor slowly sat down, and the aura around him seemed to be colder. It was so cold that it made the originally bustling hall feel a few degrees colder. These righteous people watched Ning Xuema, the demon emperor, disappear into the distance, but no one dared to sneak an attack on her. First, they might not succeed. Second, they didn't dare to act rashly in front of the ancestor. Acting rashly at this time was simply going against the ancestor. Everyone was smart, so they didn't provoke the tiger's whiskers. But now that things had developed to this point, should the engagement banquet still proceed? After all, there were still a few steps left and it wasn't considered complete yet. Everyone's gaze turned to Lizine's face, wanting to see how she would react. Lizine coughed and smiled. She stood up and said, "No matter what, I have to thank Miss Ning for giving me such a good gift." She wrapped her fingers around Shinjuli's sleeve. "Brother D, why don't we continue?" Ning Xuema did not encounter any obstacles along the way and just like that she walked out of the solemn and sacred hall. No one chased after them. Or rather, no one dared to chase after them without a venerable emperor speaking. Of course, Shinjuli did not chase after him. He did not even stand up. After walking out of the main hall, she felt as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out. She swayed slightly and her legs felt weak. She didn't want to leave anymore, so she simply soared into the sky and rushed out of the barrier above Buddha Lotus Mountain, heading down the mountain as fast as lightning. Just as she reached the foot of the mountain, she suddenly heard a thunderclap in the sky. The sound was earth-shattering and Ning Xuema, who had just landed on the ground, was shocked. She subconsciously raised her head to look up, and was stunned. Purple clouds were gathering crazily in the sky, and they were gathering towards the southeast. Suddenly, a purple lightning struck the ground and the sound of thunder was earth-shattering. What is this? Is it going through a tribulation? Ning Xuema opened her eyes wide, and tried hard to look in that direction. That direction was where the Sun Moon Sect's main hall was located. Chapter 1449. That direction was where the main hall of the Sun Moon Sect was located. She suddenly realized something and her expression changed again. In the modern era she had chatted with Hua Baoyue, the fox deity. She remembered telling her that Shinjuli was a god, but when they were together he never said anything about marrying her, which made her quite depressed. At that time, Hua Baoyue had said that usually when people of high status married, they would disturb the heavens, and the heavens would send down divine lightning to the woman who was about to be made empress. It was called the calamity of the god empress. After Hua Baoyue said this, she suspected that this was the reason why Shinjuli didn't say anything about marrying her. She wanted to find him and ask him in detail. Ask him if this was the reason why he didn't promise to marry her, but waited until she cultivated to Earth rank level 8? This time, due to the mishap, she didn't have the chance to ask him. Even if she asked him, he might not be able to tell her what he thought before he lost his memory. Now she saw this. Hua Baoyue had said that the divine lightning of the calamity of God was different from normal lightning. It was gold or purple. What she was looking at right now was purple. Could this be the calamity of the god empress? If that was the case, their engagement ceremony had been completed, right? Just as she thought of this, she saw a white light rising from the direction of the lightning. That white light directly met the lightning that was striking down, emitting an even more glaring light and an even more deafening sound. Then she saw a water-red figure rise into the sky as if it was being pulled by something, and a white figure followed suit. Although they were far away, and although the two figures were just the size of pellets in her eyes, she still recognized them. The water-red figure was Luzine, and the white figure was Shinjioli. Shinjioli was obviously protecting Luzine. When the purple lightning struck down, he was the first to wave his sleeves to block it, so most of the purple lightning struck his body, and only the aftershocks landed on Luzine. Amidst the flashes of lightning and thunder, cries of surprise could be heard. Clearly, the people there did not know about the God Empress tribulation and were all shocked. Ning Xuema slowly leaned against a big tree and sat down. She hugged her knees and looked at the two people in the sky who were going through their tribulations side by side. She stared without blinking until her eyes were sore and swollen, but she still didn't move. Shinjuli protected Luzine very well. There were a total of 12 bolts of lightning that struck down, but they were all blocked by him. Luzine curled up beside his feet and followed him closely. Not a single bolt of lightning hit her directly. The purple clouds that filled the sky slowly dispersed, and the sky returned to its previous clear state. The sun once again revealed a fiery smile as it looked down at the myriad of living beings beneath its feet. Ning Xuema didn't even blink as she watched the two of them slowly descend together. In the end, she could no longer see their shadows. She blinked and blinked again. Her eyes were probably sore from staring at the sky for too long. Tears flowed from the corners of her eyes and fell into the grass at her feet. So be it. She told herself that she had seen them go through the God Empress tribulation together with her own eyes. She had witnessed everything with her own eyes. What else was there to doubt? From now on she would really cut off all ties with him. Forgetting about each other in the martial world might be the best ending for both of them. She wanted to stand up, but her legs were already sore, so she couldn't stand up for a moment. She raised her hand to wipe her eyes and then wiped away some water. Chapter 1450. As she sat there, she felt as if she had stepped on empty air and couldn't find the shore. Where would she go in the future? There seemed to be no place for her in this world anymore. If she had known this earlier, she wouldn't have transmigrated back. No, she still had to come back. After all, her little darling couldn't adapt to the climate there. No matter what, nothing could happen to her little darling. She couldn't help but caress her stomach. Darling, mommy only has you. Tell me, where should we go? Her baby seemed to have understood her whispers and gave her face by using his little butt to puff up, right under her palm. It was a very slight movement, but it warmed her heart. No matter what, her darling didn't abandon her. She still had him. In the future, it would be born and become either him or her. He would hold her hand and call her mommy. It would be a pretty, soft and tender little milk bun. Thinking of her child, she seemed to have regained her strength. She slowly stood up and walked down the mountain towards the unknown future. She wanted to find a place to rest for a while. Once she had recovered enough energy, she would leave the continent and go somewhere else. Right now, her whole body was weak and her body was alternating between hot and cold. She wasn't in a good state. And to pass through the spatial gate, she needed to have sufficient strength. Reporting to Guild Master, Miss Ning has already gone down the mountain and is now heading towards Sunset City. The disciple who followed her reported. Continue to follow her. Remember, don't let her discover you. If there's any movement, immediately report back. Yelu Jing, and instructed. Yes. The voice transmission talisman was extinguished. Yelu Jing, and rubbed his forehead in frustration. Just now, when Lizine's heavenly lightning tribulation arrived, before his master flew up to block the tribulation for her, he quickly sent a message to him. He told him to send someone to follow Ning Xuema and that they must not lose her. If they lost her, they would be beheaded. The ancestors' instructions had always been concise and to the point. This was the first time he said such a long sentence and used such a strict tone. Yelu Jing, and was originally worried about Ning Xuema and was about to secretly send someone to follow and protect her. Hearing his master's instructions, it was exactly what he wanted. He immediately arranged for the disciples of the Sun Moon sect who were best at tracking to follow Ning Xuema. This disciple was indeed very skilled. He quickly found Ning Xuema's whereabouts and quickly reported back. Sunset City was a city to the north of the Buddha Lotus Mountain. It was over 200 miles away from the Buddha Lotus Mountain. It was a rather poor small city. Their products were barren, and they were so poor that only jingling sounds could be heard. The disciples of the Sun Moon sect wouldn't go there to purchase daily necessities. What is Ning Xuema's intention for going there? Di Zun's thoughts were hard to guess, but his junior sister's thoughts were even harder to guess. Yelu Jing, and was lost in thought for a moment. She shook her head and thought for a moment. She took out the special sound-transmitting talisman and used a spell to connect. The other side picked up almost immediately. What's the matter? The voice was cold as usual. Master, junior sister. Ah no, Miss Ning went to Wuxia City. She walked there on her own. She didn't ride a flying sword. She also didn't see anyone following her. Yelu Jing, and told everything he knew. The other side didn't respond for a long time. Yelu Jing, and held her breath and waited. After a moment, 3 words came from the other side. Continue to follow. Yelu Jing, and heaved a sigh of relief. Worried about his master's injuries, she asked, Master, how are you now? Why don't you let me come to serve you? Chapter 1451. Yelu Jing, and heaved a sigh of relief. She was worried about her master's injury. Master, how are you now? Why don't I come over to serve you? No need. Yelu Jing, and only said these 2 words and then hung up. Yelu Jing, and sighed and put away the voice-transmitting talisman. Her master withstood 12 bolts of lightning by himself in front of everyone and went into seclusion right after he landed. Before he went into seclusion, he asked his female disciple to take care of Lu Ziyin, who was also a little injured. Therefore he didn't meet the guests again. Yelu Jing, and was the only one who suffered. She still had to appease the people and send them away. She also had to deal with the tedious follow-up work. Although she had thought things through and set a goal for the future. After such a heavy blow, Ning Xuema still couldn't bear it. After she came to Wuxia City, she found that she had a tendency to have a high fever. Her high fever was different from others. When others had a high fever, their faces would be as white as a ghost or as red as the sun. They would also walk with unsteady steps. However, she wasn't like that. Her body was obviously cold, but her small face was pink and red. She walked very steadily and even looked a little light. Nothing could be seen from her appearance. She touched her forehead. Her hand was cold, but her forehead was burning hot. She felt that the air she exhaled was also steam. She had a high fever. It didn't matter if she had a fever, but she couldn't burn the baby. Now, the baby in her belly was her only spiritual support. If something happened to the baby, she really didn't have the courage to live. Fortunately, she was a doctor. After she arrived at Wuxia City, she immediately found an inn to stay. She knew that she shouldn't take medicine when she was pregnant. In those days in the modern world, she crammed a lot of knowledge on pregnant women and knew that many cold medicines were harmful to the baby. In this era, although she knew that some medicines were safe, she didn't know if they would harm the baby. She didn't dare to take the risk. Therefore, after she noticed that she had a high fever, her first reaction was to lower her temperature physically and use her spiritual power to drive the heat away. This city was very poor, and there were very few outsiders who came here. Therefore, the inns in this city were also shabby, and they didn't have enough things. When Ning Xuema asked for a bathtub, the shop assistant ran out to buy it at the last minute. Fortunately, he managed to buy it in time. Ning Xuema was already a little dizzy from the fever. She sent the waiter out and closed the door. Her body trembled as she stepped into the bathtub filled with warm water. Sure enough, the water in the bathtub took away some of the heat from her body, and her mind cleared up a little. Actually, she was still a little regretful. If she had known that she would fall ill, she wouldn't have come to this godforsaken place. The reason why he had chosen to come here at that time was because he had taken a fancy to the fact that no one would come here easily. He wouldn't bump into the other disciples of the Sun Moon sect, so as to avoid any awkwardness. She had originally planned to rest here for 2 days before leaving. Who would have thought that this illness would come so fiercely? Damn it, wasn't she already at Earth rank level 9? How did she become Little Sister Lin? You'll get sick just by being blown by the wind. She had a high fever, but her body was cold. In order to reduce her fever quickly, she made the water in the bathtub warm. It was about the same temperature as the surface of her body. Normally, she would feel comfortable soaking in such bathwater. But now, because her skin was much warmer than the bathwater, she felt as if she was sitting in ice water. She was so cold that she shivered and her teeth chattered. Chapter 1452. She closed her eyes and endured the discomfort. She let her psychokinesis circulate in her body and forced the heat out little by little. Maybe it was because she was too tired, or maybe the high fever made her head a little dizzy, but she actually fell asleep while she was adjusting her breath. She only woke up when her body slipped into the water and accidentally choked on the water. She quickly popped her head out of the water with her heart beating wildly. That mouthful of water made her feel like she was drowning again. Her whole body was stiff. After taking a deep breath, she suddenly felt that the dizziness was much lighter. She touched her forehead and felt that it was not so hot anymore. She heaved a sigh of relief. The baby in her stomach suddenly kicked a few times. She used her inner vision to look and saw that it was kicking and punching happily inside. It seemed to have grown in size as well. It seemed that the little guy had finally started to grow after returning to this world. She stayed in this inn for 3 days. In these 3 days her high fever would recur. She used 3 methods: massage, physical cooling, and psychokinesis to drive the heat away. After 3 days the high fever finally subsided completely. She had a lot of enemies in this world, and there were also a lot of people who wanted her dead. Therefore, when she was staying in this inn, although she lived in seclusion, every time she went out, she would try her best to make herself look more energetic so that no one could see through her. Not to mention outsiders, even the inn's manager did not know about her illness. They only knew that this girl liked to soak in the bath water 3 or 4 times a day. On this day she finally felt that she had some appetite. The food in this inn was really hard to swallow. A few days ago she felt so uncomfortable that she tried not to go out. Now that she had regained her mobility, she could no longer hold it in. She walked out and wanted to find the best restaurant to have a meal. The small town was poor. The small town was really poor. She walked from one end of the small town to the other and did not find a decent restaurant. It was either tattered or dirty. Not to mention eating, just looking at it made her feel disgusted. The little guy in her stomach started to kick and punch again, as if protesting that he was hungry for so long. Well, she should find a decent city. At least she could have a few more good meals. Due to this serious illness, her skills had decreased by a lot. Her sword was also trembling a little. When she was flying in the air, her body was slightly swaying. Fortunately, she did not fall and embarrass herself. She disappeared in the air like a wisp of smoke. The disciples of the Sun Moon sect who had been following her in secret were dumbfounded on the ground. Although his tracking skills were unparalleled, he had yet to learn how to fly. I can't follow him anymore. Thinking about it, he immediately reported to Yelu Jing. These few days he would report to Yelu Jing, and every day, and it was the kind of report that involved no matter how big or small. Even Ning Xuema said clearly how many buckets of bathing water she asked for and how many steamed buns she ate every day. Yelu Jing, and paused for a moment, then ordered the disciple to continue searching in the direction Ning Xuema had gone. The disciple obeyed the order and left. Yelu Jing, and actually had a bit of a headache. The current Ning Xuema wasn't easy to follow. She could fly. Once she took off, she would disappear in the blink of an eye. Those spies of the Sun Moon sect who could fly were few and far between, and it just so happened that they were not on Buddha Lotus Mountain. The people he could send were too few. Only those who had cultivated to the 6.5 level of the Earth realm could practice the sword technique. Even in the Sun Moon sect, there weren't many who could reach this level. And these people were mostly hall masters, not spies. Chapter 1453. Master's task was the most important. On the surface, Master was extremely cold towards Ning Xuema, but he was also extremely attentive. Every day he would use the sound transmission talisman to report Ning Xuema's matters to Master. Although Master didn't say anything, he had never interrupted him. Even when he nagged about how Ning Xuema ate a few steamed buns today, Master didn't find him annoying, and when he reported other matters to Master, if he was a little long-winded, Master would immediately tell him, "Get to the point." He didn't even dare to say a word of nonsense about those matters. He had to desperately organize his words before reporting them. Master was in seclusion to recover. Yelu Jing, and also tried his best not to disturb him. Most of the matters were settled by himself. Ning Xuema's matter was as important as the sky. If it wasn't for the fact that Yelu Jing and couldn't leave, he might as well go by himself. He thought for a moment and decided to summon a hall master over to let him follow Ning Xuema. Just as he walked out of the door, he saw Helian Xiao standing outside the door. Helian Xiao's eyes were fixed on him, giving Yelu Jing an affright. This disciple was passionate and candid towards others. He hated evil as if they were his enemies. Furthermore, he was extremely talented. In these 20 years, his cultivation had already reached Earth rank grade 8 and was advancing towards grade 9. He had become the role model of the new generation of disciples in the Sun Moon sect. Yelu Jing, and was still very satisfied with this disciple. The only thing he wasn't satisfied with was that this kid seemed to be somewhat obsessed with Ning Xuema. They had already reached the age where they should have gotten married long ago, but he used the excuse that he had to concentrate on his cultivation and had no time to care about love affairs. 10 years before Ning Xuema went missing, Helian Xiao, who had always stayed in the mountains and cultivated bitterly, liked to go out and train. Once he left, he wouldn't return for a few months. Later on, news of Ning Xuema's death spread. They even obtained her corpse and buried her. When Helian Xiao heard the news and returned, he was dispirited for a long time. Suddenly he stopped going out and resumed his cultivation in the mountains. However, Ning Xuema's grave would have someone secretly sprinkling flowers and sweeping flowers every day. Yelu Jing, and felt puzzled and secretly investigated a few times. Finally, she discovered that it was this brat who came to Ning Xuema's grave every night to busy himself. Occasionally he would carry a wine jug and drink while talking to the people in the grave. When he got drunk he would sit there and cry. It was only then that Yelu Jing and realized that this disciple of his was so obsessed with Ning Xuema. When he said he was going out to train, it was probably to find someone. Later, when Ning Xuema was rescued by the ancestor, he was also the happiest person. That night, he dug up Ning Xuema's grave, and even kicked the coffin a few times, saying that it made him cry in front of a strange person for 10 years. Later on, for some reason, Ning Xuema entered the devil world and left the Sun Moon sect. This brat probably didn't believe that Ning Xuema would enter the devil world and secretly ran to the devil world a few times. There were a few times when he was almost caught and skinned by the people of the devil world. Fortunately, his martial arts were high and he ran fast, so he was lucky to escape. However, he was also seriously injured once and almost lost his life. If Yelu Jing and didn't find him in time and bring him back to treat his injuries, he might have already become a pile of bones in the devil world. After Ning Xuema went missing for 10 years, his master seemed to have been heartbroken. He ordered all the disciples of the Sun Moon sect not to search for her again. Those who disobeyed would be killed without mercy. At that time, Yelu Jing and was most worried about this troublesome disciple of his. He was afraid that he would go against the ancestors' order and secretly investigate again. Thus, he simply found a reason to punish him to a place with abundant spiritual energy in the back mountains and shut him in. He made him concentrate on cultivating there and couldn't come out without his master's orders. Chapter 1454. Yelu Jing and was afraid that he would run away, so he personally set up a barrier near the back mountain and checked it every day to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Fortunately, this kid was a good seedling for martial arts. He probably knew that he couldn't run away from confinement, so he worked hard to cultivate. In 10 years, his psychokinesis also rose from level 7 to level 8, because there were many people coming to the ancestors' engagement banquet, including this kid's father, Yelu Jing, and let him out to let the father and son meet. But he didn't expect that Ning Xuema, who had been missing for 10 years without any news, would suddenly appear. And this kid actually dared to risk universal condemnation and run away with Ning Xuema. This made Yelu Jing and sweat for his disciple. He was afraid that the ancestor would turn this kid into dregs in anger. After the disturbance at the engagement banquet, the ancestor immediately went into seclusion and didn't have time to deal with this kid. Yelu Jing and was also busy and forgot about him for a while. Now that he saw him standing outside his door, the veins on Yelu Jing'an's forehead suddenly popped out in joy. Right now it was already chaotic enough. This kid wouldn't want to add more chaos, right? Master, I want to go down the mountain. This was Helian Zhao's first sentence when he saw Yelu Jing'an. You're not allowed. Yelu Jing and refused without thinking. He could guess what was going on even if he used his toes to guess. Master, I must go down the mountain. Helian Zhao's tone was firm. Master said you're not allowed. Yelu Jing'an's tone was impatient, itching to kick this good-for-nothing disciple away. He was too lazy to talk nonsense with him and walked out in large strides. He still had many things to do. How could he have the time to tangle with this kid? Master, I know she's already taken. I know she doesn't have that kind of feeling towards me. I don't have any other thoughts towards her now. I only see her as a friend. A true friend. She's outside alone now, and with that kind of reputation, I'm afraid someone will harm her. I only want to go to her side and protect her. Helian Zhao spoke from behind him and said each word seriously. Really, I only want to protect her. Even if it's secretly protecting her. Yelu Jing'an's footsteps paused. He slowly turned around and sized him up. You mean what you say? Helian Zhao didn't expect his master to relent so quickly. His eyes immediately lit up as he said loudly, keep your word. What if you're the only one allowed to protect her from the shadows? That works too. But what if she encounters great danger and I have to show myself to help her? Helian Zhao agreed to his master's conditions, but he also raised an objection. If you find any signs of her being in danger, report it immediately. There was no room for delay. If there really is such a special situation, it won't be too late for you to show yourself. Yes. Helian Zhao answered loudly and turned around to leave. Wait. Yelu Jing'an gave him a special sound-transmitting talisman. She's currently on her way to Phoenix City, you can go look for her. Remember, you are not allowed to mention this mission to anyone. You have to report her situation twice a day. Remember everything. There must be no mistakes. Helian Zhao's eyes widened. Master, the Sun Moon sect is monitoring her? What? Yilu Jing'an's expression chilled. Since you've received a mission, you should complete it excellently. Why are you asking so many questions? If you don't want to do it, I'm willing. Helian Zhao was afraid that he would go back on his word. Master, then I'll go now. He snatched the sound-transmitting talisman and disappeared in a flash. Chapter 1455. Yilu Jing'an was speechless. This disciple of his was really impatient. However, it was good to let him go. Helian Zhao had always been talkative. He didn't even need to ask when he sent back the news. He wasn't like the other scout disciples, whose words were terrifyingly concise and dry. He didn't have much to report to his master. Every time he reported news about Ning Xuema to his master, he had to rack his brains to say more. Even so, his master would always ask, "That's all?" At the end. It was obvious that he hadn't heard enough, which made him feel guilty. Helian Zhao was skilled and daring. With him secretly protecting Ning Xuema and constantly sending news, there shouldn't be any accidents. Yilu Jing'an was finally relieved. He turned around to arrange other matters. He lingered outside for a while, and only returned after he had finished dealing with all the miscellaneous matters. Just as he walked to his door, a graceful lady appeared. Jing'an. Yilu Jing'an took a step back and bowed. Exalted Immortal Lu. That lady was Lu Ziyin. She wore a purple robe today and looked as if she could fly. She was as fresh as a dewy purple pearl. Jing'an, you don't have to be so polite. You can just call me Ziyin. Lu Ziyin smiled, making people happy. I don't dare. Is Exalted Immortal Lu feeling better now? Yilu Jing'an asked respectfully. He had always been respectful towards this lady. After all, she was the most likely person to become his master's wife. Lu Ziyin spun around, her robe fluttering. I'm almost recovered. Her beautiful eyes landed on Yilu Jing'an. How is your master now? Yilu Jing'an replied, Master is recovering. You don't have to worry about him. Master will be very happy if he knows that you are fully recovered. Lu Ziyin sighed. It's all thanks to your master that he blocked the lightning tribulation for me. That's why he's so heavily injured. I feel really bad about it and I really want to see him. Yilu Jing'an said, Thank you for thinking about my master. He's in seclusion and probably can't see anyone. You can just wait for 2 more days. Lu Ziyin, on the other hand, was a magnanimous person. She sighed softly and said, I understand. During the recovery period, one cannot be disturbed by external matters. I'll see him in a few days. The same. Thank you for your understanding, Fairy. Yilu Jing'an's reply was watertight. Fairy's body is still slightly unwell. Why don't you return to the courtyard to rest? Just let the disciples tell you what you need. There's no need for you to come here personally. Lu Zi chuckled, Jing'an, you're too polite. The disciples you sent are all pretty good and serve me very attentively. I didn't come looking for you to ask for anything. I want to go out for a while. Yilu Jing'an was stunned. Ever since Fairy Lu came to the Sun Moon sect on Buddha Lotus Mountain, she rarely went out. Even if she went out, it was with her master. Now she wanted to go out alone? Logically speaking, she was an honored guest of the Sun Moon sect, so she could come and go as she pleased. In fact, she didn't even need to report to anyone. But Master treasured her so much that he even blocked the lightning bolt for her. If she went out alone and something happened, he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Fairy, is there something urgent? Why don't you go with Master after he comes out of seclusion? Lu Ziyin shook her head lightly. There's no need. I'm looking for medicine for your master this time. I know a medicine that's very beneficial for lightning strike injuries. Chapter 1456. Yilu Jing'an's eyes lit up. What kind of medicine is that? Where is it grown? You can let your disciple pick it? Lu Ziyin smiled. That place can only be visited by those whose psychokinesis has reached the first level of the heaven realm. Moreover, the person who needs to pick the medicine is also selected. Only our Jade Water Fox clan can go there. Yilu Jing'an asked. Is there any risk? Of course there is a little risk, but it's not a big problem. I've been there twice before and am familiar with it. There won't be any problems. I wanted to go earlier but my body didn't allow it. Now that I've recovered, I must go this time. Lu Ziyin's tone was resolute. Then Fairy can discuss it with my master. No need. He loves me dearly and can't bear to let me take any risks. If he knows, he will definitely stop me. He has done so much for me, so it's only right that I do one or two things for him. So I won't discuss it with him. When I come back with the medicine, he won't be able to do anything. Lu Xing smiled sweetly. Alright, it's enough that you know about this. I'll go now. She turned and floated up. Then can fairy tell me where to go? Cloudgrass Forbidden Land. Lu Xing threw down these 4 words and disappeared. Yelu Jing and had a feeling that something wasn't right, but after thinking about it, he couldn't figure out what was wrong. He shook his head and decided that if this fairy didn't return in 2 days, he would report it to his master. His master was currently in seclusion to recover. It wouldn't be good if there were too many things that made him worry. Just as he was pondering, the sound transmission talisman at his waist lit up. Layers of light gold flowed on it, extremely beautiful. Yelu Jing and almost jumped up. Damn it. There were too many things today and he forgot to report it to his master. He hurriedly connected the sound transmission talisman. Before the ancestor could speak, he had already spilled the beans. Master, Miss Ning finally left that small broken city today. She seems to be heading towards Phoenix City. Her complexion looks pretty good. Before she left, she even greeted the shop owner and gave him more than 10 taels of silver. Since last night, she didn't ask for bathing water that often and didn't walk around the house often. She should have slept all the way until dawn. Blah 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 Yelu Jing, and spoke for 3 whole minutes. In the end he had nothing to say. The ancestor's question didn't come from the sound transmitting talisman. If it wasn't still lit up, Yelu Jing and would have thought that the other side had already hung up. Master. Yelu Jing and called out tentatively. Seems? The person on the other side finally spat out 2 words. Yelu Jing and reacted for a long while before finally understanding where the word master referred to. He hurriedly said, Miss Ning left on her sword. The disciple following her doesn't know the art of sword manipulation and can only make a rough guess based on the direction she went. But disciple has already sent other disciples who know the art of sword manipulation. They should be able to catch up to her very quickly and won't let anything happen to her. The leaders and disciples of the other sects have also secretly informed them not to make things difficult for Miss Ning. The voice on the other end was indifferent. Did I say I was protecting her? I just want you to pay attention to her every move. Is there any news from Shuilan? No. This person seems to have completely disappeared. From beginning to end, he hasn't appeared. Disciple has also sent Hall Master Lin to the Demon Realm to investigate. The Demon Realm has become a pile of loose sand these past 10 years. It's very chaotic. Many people of the Demon Dao are also looking for him. They probably want him to return and preside over the situation. Chapter 1457. Yelu Jing and paused for a moment before continuing. Some people guessed that he was probably heavily injured somewhere and went into hiding to recuperate. The people of the demon world said that he always had this problem. Once he was heavily injured, he would definitely disappear. The overlord was silent for a moment before asking, Who's following Ning Xuema now? Yelu Jing and was stunned. He didn't expect the overlord to ask such details. After pausing for a moment, he didn't dare to hide anything. It's Helian Xiao. His martial arts have already reached Earth Rank 8. He's bold and careful. Yelu Jing'en's heart was burning with a small flame. Master wouldn't be jealous, right? He wouldn't be jealous, right? If Master got angry, then he would immediately call that boy back to prevent him from becoming Master's cannon fodder. He held his little heart and waited for a long time. As the sound transmission talisman was extinguished, Master directly hung up. So Master wasn't jealous? You wouldn't blame Helian Xiao that boy? Yelu Jing and heaved a sigh of relief, but at the same time, a trace of doubt arose in his heart. Was he wrong about the direction he had guessed? Master actually didn't care about Junior Sister, but really treated her as a demon and followed her? Afraid that she would harm this world? Sending people to follow her was actually to guard against her? Master's thoughts were so hard to guess. Also, what did Master think of Lu Xing? Ever since the lightning tribulation, Master never took the initiative to ask about Lu Xing's injuries. He didn't even ask about her whereabouts. It was as if he had already thrown it aside and didn't ask about it anymore. As a result, Yelu Jing and tried his best not to wander around Lu Xing's courtyard. He still sent 2 disciples to serve her as usual. Originally, he would occasionally go there to see if she was lacking or if someone bullied her. But these few days he didn't want to go anymore. He didn't want her to beat around the bush and ask if Master had asked about her injuries. It would make it seem like he was keeping her in suspense. Yelu Jing and felt his head hurt even more. He had always been good at understanding others and was used to figuring out people's thoughts. But when he met Master who didn't reveal anything, he also felt powerless and lost. Helian Xiao was lost. Helian Xiao didn't know how many places he had explored in his life. He even went back and forth from the most famous maze a few times and could quickly find his way out. But now he was lost. He was originally rushing forward like a spark, wishing he could reach Ning Xuema's side in one step and protect her from harm in the dark. His imperial sword technique was already very advanced. He flew in the air like a shooting star across the sky. In just a moment he had traveled dozens of miles. He was familiar with this route, so he didn't expect that he would lose track of the coordinates after being distracted for a moment during the flight. White clouds filled the sky, floating clouds filled the sky. Above his head, below his feet, to his left and to his right, it was as if he was lost in a boundless sea of clouds, unable to distinguish north from south. He didn't even know if he was standing or upside down. What was going on? Did I run into a ghost? But wasn't this ghost too clever? To actually be able to set up such a bewildering array in the sky. Helian Xiao paused for a moment, but he wasn't that nervous. He had learned a lot of ways to dispel this kind of sorcery in the Sun Moon sect. Ghostly Labyrinth was a piece of cake for him. It wasn't even worth mentioning. He chuckled. Which bastard dares to trap me? I'll let you know how powerful I am. I'll pull you out and tear you into pieces. Chapter 1458. As he threatened, he used the spell to break the ghost wall. After a while the white cloud was still the same white cloud and he was still in the sea of clouds. He did not give up and used many other methods, but they were still ineffective. Was the ghost wall so powerful? What kind of kid set it up? He must have become a ghost immortal. Helian Xiao made up his mind and gave up on the spell. He stopped flying on the sword and let his body fall freely. He did not believe that he could not land on the ground. At most he would feel dizzy, but it was still better than being trapped here. Hungry? Starving to death. Ning Xuema never thought that she would be so hungry one day. The little guy in her stomach was tossing and turning, as if it was crying that it was hungry. It wanted to eat? Was this the legendary quarrel? Ning Xuema flew forward faster while comforting the little baby in her stomach. Don't make a fuss, I will give you something to eat later. Let's eat chicken, duck, fish and many other delicacies. She was so hungry that her hands were trembling and her legs were weak. After flying for a while, she almost could not control the sword anymore. She lowered her head and looked down. It was a boundless mountain range, but she didn't see any sign of a city. If she knew that she would be so hungry, she would have endured the nausea and eaten the food sent by the owner. She sighed and looked down again. Suddenly she had an idea. She would not be able to reach the city in a short time. She might as well go to the mountain below to hunt some rabbits and roast them to satisfy her hunger. When she thought of roasted rabbits, the little baby in her stomach tossed and turned even more as if it wanted to eat meat. As for Ning Xuema, she had the desire to catch a rabbit and skin it alive. Damn. No wonder when she was in the modern world she saw some news saying that when some pregnant women wanted to eat something, they would be especially hungry. If they could not eat it, they would throw all kinds of tantrums, causing their husbands to cross half of the city in the middle of the night to find the delicacies that their wives wanted to eat. When she saw such news, she snorted and thought that most of those women were pretentious and wanted to test how much their husbands doted on them. Now she finally knew that it was not pretentious. It was real hunger and craving. The combination of these two feelings even made her a little flustered. She took a deep breath and was about to rush down when a large cloud suddenly flew in front of her. She was caught off guard and plunged into the cloud. A moment later she stood still. She was surrounded by cotton-like clouds that floated up, down, left and right, causing her to lose her sense of direction. After Ning Xuema flew through the sea of clouds for a while, she understood that she had encountered something similar to a ghost labyrinth. There were only 3 kinds of people who could set this up in the sky. It was a great demon that had cultivated for a long period of time. Its power was at least a few thousand years. The powerful devils of the devil realm. There were also those who had reached Earth Realm level 9 in the immortal cultivation world. She even had the title of Demon Emperor. There were devils in the devil world who wanted to kill her and usurp the throne. Those in the immortal cultivation world also wanted to get rid of her as soon as possible. As for demons, the demon probably also wanted to catch someone with her skills and eat her. Therefore all 3 scenarios were possible. Before the person behind the scenes came out, Ning Xuema didn't want to waste her brain cells to make wild guesses. Therefore she directly used magic to crack it. This time she did not use the method that Xinjiuli had taught her. Instead, she used the method that Hua Baoyue had taught her when she communicated with him in the modern world. That day when Hua Baoyue knew that she practiced magic, he was very curious and pestered her to show him a few kinds of magic. Chapter 1459. That day when Hua Baoyue found out that she practiced magic, he was very curious and pestered her to show him a few. In exchange, he taught her a few types of exorcism magic. Especially when it came to dealing with this kind of maze-like ghostly labyrinth, his method was even more effective. Hua Baoyue was not exaggerating. After Ning Xuema used that method, the clouds in front of her immediately disappeared like a tide. Then she found herself rushing towards the ground like a cannonball. She quickly stabilized her body. At this moment she was only 100 to 200 meters away from the ground. If she did not break the ghostly labyrinth, in time she might have hit the craggy rocks on the ground in a few seconds and become a meat paste. She wiped the cold sweat on her head. Who was this bastard who tricked her like this? It was obvious that he wanted to kill her secretly. Fortunately she broke the spell fast enough. Otherwise she would not even know how she died. She paced back and forth trying to find the person behind this. Just as she raised her head, she heard a vicious wind above her. She subconsciously dodged and a figure fell down beside her like a whirlwind. Helian Xiao. Ning Xuema's eyes were sharp. She recognized the person's identity at a glance. This guy had an expression of a warrior breaking his wrist as he rushed down. It looked like he was about to hit a protruding mountain rock below. This idiot. Ning Xuema raised her hand and a red rope appeared. It flew out like lightning and wrapped around Helian Xiao's waist. Then she suddenly pulled. Helian Xiao flew back. Helian Xiao opened his eyes and roared, "So it's a spider demon. How dare you trap me? Take this." With a whoosh he slapped towards Ning Xuema. His skill was not low and his strength was not small either. This slap was like a hurricane. He wanted to slap Ning Xuema away. Ning Xuema's face darkened. The red rope in her hand suddenly shook. Helian Xiao was spun around like a windmill. Naturally his slap missed. So powerful. I didn't expect a demoness like you to have some skills. A Xuema? Helian Xiao was halfway through his grand speech when he finally recognized Ning Xuema. Originally, he had ferociously struck out with his palm, but after recognizing Ning Xuema, he hastily retracted his palm. With a bang, it landed on his own body. With a muffled groan, his body flew out like a kite. Ning Xuema. She had originally suspected that this Helian Xiao was some kind of demon impersonating him, but now her suspicions were mostly dispelled. It should be this kid. He had probably encountered the same problem as himself, where he had encountered the same problem as himself. Although Helian Xiao was in a sorry state when he landed this time, he wasn't injured. He only broke a few tree branches, tore a corner of his clothes and scratched his face a little. He jumped up from the ground and looked at Ning Xuema who was falling down with him. His face was filled with disbelief. "It's really you, Xuema. Aren't you at the Sun Moon sect? Why are you here?" Ning Xuema asked as she crossed her arms and stood 3 meters away from him. Helian Xiao scratched his head. "I was ordered by my master to go to Phoenix City to handle some matters. I didn't expect to encounter this ghost-hitting wall on the way. Damn it, what the hell set this up? I almost killed myself by hitting a rock." He kicked the big rock next to him fiercely. Ning Xuema's eyes turned slightly. She raised her head and looked at the sky. White clouds floated by but she couldn't see anything unusual. "Did you see anything in the ghost-hitting wall just now? Or did you smell any evil aura?" Ning Xuema asked. Helian Xiao shook his head. "I didn't smell any evil aura. It's really too evil." Chapter 1460. Helian Xiao recounted the scene that he had seen in the Sea of Clouds. It was similar to what Ning Xuema saw, but Ning Xuema was not trapped as long as he was. Helian Xiao looked left and right with a puzzled expression. "Where is this? How did I fall here?" Ning Xuema was also observing the surrounding scenery. The scenery here was vaguely familiar to her, as if she had been here before. After a while, she finally recognized it. The 6th summit of Heavenly Book Mountain. Helian Xiao was dumbfounded. Heavenly Book Mountain? That's not right? I shouldn't have passed through Heavenly Book Mountain on my way to Phoenix City? Xuema, are you sure you're not mistaken? Ning Xuema shook her head. She was looking at a cliff in a daze. That cliff was the place where all kinds of strange snakes appeared. There, Number 2 was kidnapped by the strange eagle of the 9th summit in order to protect her and lost his life. She was also carried to the 9th summit by the strange eagle and had a fortuitous encounter. She was suddenly stunned. She kept feeling that she met the most important person here, but she couldn't recall who it was. It was as if her memories of this place were forcefully erased. She was a little dazed. The little baby in her stomach was unwilling to be ignored and kicked her again, waking her up instantly. She shook her head. Solving the problem of hunger was the most important thing right now. Everything else should be put aside. She couldn't help but stroke her stomach. This little guy was quite strange. It was not even as big as her middle finger and was very small. It was not much bigger than a pigeon's egg, but it was very active and could actually kick her stomach from time to time. After all, it was the child of God. It was different from a normal baby. Normally, her stomach should be visible after 4 months of pregnancy, but she couldn't see it at all. Her waist was as slender as a willow. She could feel her baby's movements, but she couldn't see anything from her stomach. "Shuama, what's wrong with you?" Helian Xiao waved his finger in front of her eyes. "Nothing." Ning Shuama came back to her senses and turned to ask Helian Xiao, "Are you hungry?" She looked at Helian Xiao with bright eyes. Helian Xiao nodded honestly. "I'm hungry." "Good. I'll go hunting and you can barbecue. How about that?" Ning Shuema immediately divided the work. She was good at hunting, but she was not good at barbecuing. The food she cooked was either burnt or not cooked, which made her speechless. Helian Xiao immediately raised his head. "Hunting is a man's job. It's better that I go hunting. You're in charge of the barbecue. Cut the crap. Do as I say." Ning Shuema did not give him a chance to refute. She immediately got up and prepared to go hunting. Just as she stood up, her head suddenly felt dizzy. She swayed a little before regaining her footing. "Shuema, are you feeling unwell?" Helian Xiao stared at her face, his eyes filled with worry. Ning Shuema shook her head slightly. She didn't want anyone to know about her pregnancy, especially the people from the Sun Moon sect. Thus, even though Helian Xiao was her friend, she didn't want to tell him. After all, Helian Xiao was a blabbermouth. Who knew when this news would reach that person's ears? He was afraid that it would add unnecessary variables. So what if he knew about this child? Even if he knew that this child was his, with his personality, he would probably keep her by his side and keep her as a concubine. Just like in those CO novels, they were only interested in the child and kept the child's mother for the sake of the child. It was a pity that she was no longer interested in him. Not to mention being his concubine, even if he broke off his engagement with Luzine and married her, she wouldn't be willing. Chapter 1461. Therefore, now that things had developed to this point, she didn't want him to know about this child and had to think of a way to hide it. Probably because she was too hungry, she felt a burning sensation in her stomach as if a few small hands were scratching it. It was very uncomfortable. Cold sweat appeared on her forehead as she sat down on a big rock. "I'm fine. I'm probably tired from the journey." "Then you rest here. I'll go hunting and barbecue when I come back. Don't worry, I'm very good at barbecuing. I guarantee that you'll want to eat more after you eat." Helian Xiao was very considerate. He turned around and left, but after walking a few steps he was still worried. "Shuema, are you really okay?" This guy was treating her like a piece of paper. Ning Shuema waved her hand. Go, I'm fine." This was the 6th peak of the Heavenly Book Mountains, and the level of the demonic beasts wasn't high. She was fine when she was a rookie, let alone now. It was fine if those demonic beasts didn't come, but if they did, she could kill them in a matter of minutes and make them her food. Helian Xiao finally left. Ning Shuema simply sat on the big rock and meditated. She said it casually, but she was still on guard in her heart. After all, the owner of the Ghost Hits wall, that looked like a sea of clouds, hadn't appeared yet, so she couldn't not be on guard. She looked like she was meditating, but in fact, all the senses in her body were activated, not letting go of the slightest movement in her surroundings. Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from afar. It sounded like Helian Xiao's voice. Damn, he couldn't have met the owner of the Ghost Hits wall, right? Ning Shuema's figure rose and she followed the sound like a wisp of smoke. Her current speed was extremely fast, and her judgment of direction was accurate. In almost the blink of an eye, she ran a few miles away. After a moment, she already saw Helian Xiao's figure. At the same time, she paused her steps. In the middle of countless tall trees, there was a short and sturdy peach tree. Countless big pink peaches hung on the peach tree, swaying gently with the breeze. It looked very attractive. Helian Xiao was holding a pheasant and a rabbit in his hands. At this moment he was staring at the big peach, lost in thought. He probably heard Ning Shuema flying over and turned around. "Shuema, look, what a big peach." The fragrance of the peaches made the already hungry people even hungrier. However, Ning Shuema did not want to pick them. It was late spring now. It was normal to see peach blossoms in the mountains, but peaches shouldn't be ripe at this time. There must be something fishy going on. She was pregnant now, so she couldn't eat anything carelessly. She also expressed her own point of view, but Helian Xiao disapproved. "Shuima, you're too careful." After all, this was the Heavenly Book Mountain, and there were many strange trees and monsters. Perhaps the earth energy here was special, and the peaches ripened at this time of the year. Perhaps the Queen Mother of the West's peaches of immortality fell here by mistake. Let's pick a few first to fill our stomachs. Without any explanation, he flew up and quickly plucked 2 big peaches. The big peaches were pink and white, and their appearance was indeed very attractive. Helian Xiao casually handed one to Ning Shuema. "That's right, your poison skills are quite good. Take a look and check it first." Ning Shuema could only accept it. She turned the peach over and over again to examine it. She was an expert in poisons, so she could naturally tell if the peach was poisonous or not. The result of the examination was that the peach was not poisonous. Instead, it had a very special kind of light immortal energy that made people feel very comfortable. Helian Xiao thought for a moment. After all, he was still not at ease. He gave the peach in his hand to the rabbit that was kicking its legs in his hand to take a bite. Then he placed the rabbit on the ground to check its reaction. Chapter 1462. The rabbit was very healthy and lively. After eating one bite, it still wanted to eat a second bite. After putting it on the ground, it wasn't in a hurry to run away. Instead, it looked at the peach in Helian Xiao's hand with a greedy look in its eyes. Helian Xiao generously threw the peach in his hand to the rabbit. The rabbit immediately jumped over and gnawed on it. After a while, only the pit of the peach was left. After the rabbit finished eating, it still wanted more. It circled around Helian Xiao and couldn't bear to leave. A silly rabbit. This was Ning Shuema's only evaluation of the rabbit. The rabbit was still alive and kicking. Helian Xiao heaved a sigh of relief. "I knew it. This peach looks like an immortal and doesn't seem poisonous. Come, let's eat this first. I'll roast some pheasants and rabbits for you later." He went up the tree and plucked 2 more peaches. He gnawed on one and threw the other one to Ning Shuema. He quickly gnawed on one. When he raised his head, he saw Ning Shuema standing in the same place and looking at him. She didn't have any intention to eat it. "Shuema, what's wrong? This peach is very fragrant and sweet. It's not poisonous. Why don't you eat it?" Ning Shuema sighed. "Lian Xiao, did you forget? I don't eat peaches." Helian Xiao was stunned. Is that so? I really forgot." Ning Shuema continued to look at him. "I remember that you don't eat peaches either. Once you eat this, you'll get red bumps all over your body and feel uncomfortable. At that time, you even said that the most disgusting fruit in the world was peaches." Helian Xiao was speechless. His expression changed slightly. He paused for a moment, slapped his head and said in annoyance, "I haven't eaten this for so long. I actually forgot that eating this thing is uncomfortable. However, the taste of this peach is really not bad. It's different from ordinary peaches. Try it. Maybe you'll be willing to eat it." "Is that so?" Ning Shuema seemed to be tempted. Sure enough, she brought the peach close to her lips. Helian Xiao couldn't help but stare at her. Ning Shuema moved the peach away from her lips again and asked Helian Xiao indifferently, "Oh right, Lian Xiao, I remember you said that your mother likes to eat peaches the most. Why don't you pick a few more and give them to your mother? Wasn't it her 60th birthday in a few days? This is perfect as a birthday gift." Helian Xiao paused again and patted his head. "That's right. My mother loves it. Then I'll pick a few more and bring them back." This kind of peach was rare and hard to come by. It might even have the effect of prolonging one's lifespan. As he spoke, he went up the tree to pick peaches. In one breath, he picked 7 or 8 peaches and put them into the storage space. He jumped down from the tree and glanced at Ning Shuema. "Hey Shuema, you haven't tried it yet?" Ning Shuema smiled. "I'll try it now." She raised her hand, seemingly wanting to bring the peach to her lips again. Suddenly, her hand trembled, and the peach in her hand flew towards Helian Xiao like lightning. At the same time, a raging fire dragon flew over. The fire dragon bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced towards Helian Xiao. Helian Xiao was caught off guard and almost got hit by the fire dragon. He hurriedly dodged and used several types of body movements in succession to avoid it. "Shuema, what's wrong with you?" He jumped onto a big rock and shouted in astonishment. Ning Shuema smiled. "Nothing, I just wanted to test your ability." With a wave of her hand, the surrounding rocks all flew up and continued to smash towards Helian Xiao. Helian Zhao's expression changed slightly. Every rock that Ning Xuema threw over contained a strong gust of wind. What was worse was that these rocks were actually burning. Chapter 1463. No matter which one hit him, it would be enough for him to bear the consequences. He dodged again and again. A brilliant glazed sword appeared in his palm. The sword ray rose and formed a protective barrier around his body. All the stones smashed into the barrier, causing the sword ray to tremble like water ripples. His wrist was numb from the tremors. Fortunately, all the stones were blocked by him. Xuema, this joke isn't funny? He finally breathed in. Who said it's not funny? Didn't we often compete like this in the past? Ning Xuema laughed. Her hands didn't stop at all. With a wave of her hand, countless sharp wooden swords appeared in the air. The tips of the swords were similarly burning as she continued to attack Helian Zhao. Every move of hers was a killer move. When Helian Zhao used his sword to block again, those wooden swords once again split into countless fine needles under the effect of his sword. They covered the sky and covered the earth as they shot towards him. Helian Zhao's expression changed greatly. He couldn't care about anything else and used all his strength to block. The sword in his palm slashed and struck continuously. Finally, most of the wooden fine needles were sent flying. However, because there were too many fine needles, there were still some that slipped through the net even though he desperately blocked them. 3 or 4 needles pierced his body, causing burning pain. A fine needle pierced his wrist. His hand trembled and he almost threw away the sword in his hand. Once Ning Xuema started to attack, she didn't leave the slightest bit of leeway. Wave after wave, every move and every style was like a tidal wave, attacking to the point that Helian Zhao couldn't breathe. He simply didn't have any leeway to retaliate. He finally sensed that something was wrong. He suddenly flew up and floated in the air. With a wave of his hand, he set up a barrier around his body and finally blocked another round of Ning Xuema's attacks. You actually saw through it? He opened his mouth and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Ning Xuema looked at him coldly. You revealed too much of your fox tail. This person wasn't Helian Zhao. Damn it, he actually pretended to be her friend to trick her. Fortunately, she was quick-witted and didn't fall for his evil trick. Strange, no matter if it was this person's expression or bearing, even the smell on his body was no different from Helian Zhao's. How did he do it? Helian Zhao's disguise had been seen through, so he stopped pretending. He was curious. Where did you find out? No one had ever seen through his disguise before. What's more, his disguise this time was as if he was possessed. It could be said to be the highest level of disguise. Even an emperor might not be able to see through it. Ning Xuema looked at him. A man who hides his head and shows his tail is not a hero. Show me your true face first, then I'll answer you. The man sighed softly. I'm not afraid of revealing my true face. I'm just afraid that you'll be too shocked and scare the child away. Ning Xuema's expression changed. No one in this world knew that she was pregnant. Even Xinjuli did not know about it. How did this man know about it? This person was not simple. He was familiar with Helian Zhao and wanted to trap her. Moreover, the way he dodged just now was extremely nimble and graceful. There was no need to ask, the bewitching array in the air was also set up by him. He could even see that she was pregnant. Therefore, his power should be above Earth rank level 9. He was her. Ning Xuema narrowed her eyes. Luzine? A strange look flashed through the man's eyes and he suddenly chuckled. You're indeed smart enough. A human can actually be so smart, it's really beyond my expectations. This time, it was a clear female voice, undoubtedly revealing her identity. Since she had been recognized, she was too lazy to continue her disguise. She floated in the air and revealed her true face. Chapter 1464. She was wearing a red dress, her figure was light and graceful, and her beauty was hard to describe. She was like a fairy descending to the mortal world. She was Xinjuli's current fiancée, Luzine. Ning Xuema's gaze subconsciously turned to her forehead. There was a jeweled headband on her forehead, but she couldn't tell if she had that special cinnabar mole. However, since she had gone through the immortal empress tribulation, she should have it, right? Or maybe Xinjuli's concubine and wife had gone through different tribulations, so the cinnabar mole looked different too. After she was struck by lightning, she had a 6-sided, snowflake-shaped cinnabar mole. It was as red as a coral bean. Later on, she won the bet with him and became his disciple. The concubine contract was automatically cancelled, but the cinnabar mole on her forehead didn't disappear completely. It only gradually turned from snowflake shape to round, and it lost its previous special function. Its color also became lighter. If his concubine had a snowflake-shaped cinnabar mole on her forehead, then what about his wife? What would she look like? Stop. She had nothing to do with that person, so what was the point of thinking about all these? How did you recognize me? Luzine was still puzzled. Ning Xuema sneered and said slowly, "You are indeed very talented in acting. Your role is also very similar, but you are too impatient." Huh? What do you mean? Luzine raised her eyebrows and smiled. She liked to smile, looking innocent and charming. Especially when she blinked her big eyes, there was an indescribable sweetness and charm. Ning Xuema looked at her smile and suddenly had an extremely strange feeling. Luzine's appearance didn't look like her, but her expression seemed to have the same effect. She sneered, "Are you very strange?" Luzine blinked again, "Yes." Ning Xuema also smiled, "I'm not telling you." Actually, when she met Helian Xiao, she felt a little strange because it was too much of a coincidence. However, she didn't want to suspect her friend, so she still dealt with him for a while. Luzine's acting as Helian Xiao was flawless. No matter whether it was her expression or her actions, they were the same person. This made Ning Xuema suspect that she was being too paranoid. It wasn't until Helian Xiao went hunting and encountered a peach tree and cried out in surprise that her suspicions rose again. Although Helian Xiao was bright, he wasn't someone who would be easily surprised. Even more so, he wouldn't be surprised when he saw a strange peach tree. Even if he was slightly surprised, he definitely wouldn't let out a cry of surprise. It was as if he had deliberately lured her here. Therefore, Ning Xuema played along and dealt with him. This person obviously wanted to trick her into eating the peach. He wanted to trick her, but she really didn't find anything wrong with the peach. By then, she was already 80% sure that this person was an imposter, but in order to confirm it, she deliberately asked him some questions. In reality, Helian Xiao wasn't allergic to peaches. Furthermore, he really did like to eat them. When they were both in the Sun Moon sect, he had even given her a few as a gift out of filial piety. Ning Xuema also ate peaches, so she didn't have this taboo. And from this question, Luzine revealed a second flaw. As for the third flaw, it was even more obvious. Helian Xiao lost his mother when he was young. His mother had passed away long ago. How could he celebrate his 60th birthday? These were all made up by Ning Xuema. And Luzine was afraid of revealing a flaw, so she also answered carelessly. She really went up the tree to pick peaches to make longevity peaches? At this point, Ning Xuema was finally certain that the person in front of her was an imposter. Chapter 1465. Then why should she be polite? Of course she would take action immediately. She had finally forced her to reveal her true colors. I didn't know that a mighty immortal like you would do something so despicable. Luzine, you are a disgrace to the word mighty immortal. Ning Xuema reprimanded her impolitely. Luzine's charming face slightly reddened, but she immediately smiled. Ning Xuema, I think you have a wrong understanding of the word immortal. Also, this immortal's actions can't be considered wretched. I was merely following orders. Following orders? Ning Xuema raised her eyebrows and looked at her with a faint smile. Whose orders? Luzine smiled innocently, but the question she answered was not naive at all. What do you think? She smiled again. Someone doesn't want you to have this child, but it's not convenient for him to do it himself, so he hinted for me to come. She didn't mention anyone's name in her words, but the hint was too obvious, and the direction was also very obvious. After saying this, her bright eyes fell on Ning Xuema's face. She knew that with Ning Xuema's intelligence she would be able to guess who this person was. She was waiting for her to change her expression. It would definitely be beautiful. She was looking forward to it with evil intentions. Ning Xuema smiled. She crossed her arms and looked at her coldly. Luzine, your plan to shift the blame onto someone else is not bad. Do you think I will believe it? Although Shinjioli had wronged her, she still understood his character very well. If he knew that she had this child, he would most likely take responsibility and keep her. He would definitely not harm the child. Even if he did not want this child, he would come himself and do it cleanly instead of asking someone else to do it. Luzine was obviously trying to provoke her with this. Did she think that Ning Xuema was an idiot? Luzine's expression changed slightly. She did not expect that she would be seen through so quickly. She smiled and said leisurely, "Poor human, I'm just telling you the truth. It has nothing to do with me whether you believe it or not. It's good that you don't believe it. At least you can deceive yourself." This Luzine appeared to be all smiles, but her words were venomous. Every word she said pushed the blame onto Shinjoli. If it was someone with a slightly weaker mind, they might really be enraged by her. However, the person she met was Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema had been hanging out in various social circles all these years. What kind of people had she not met? People like Lu Xin might not be common in this world, but in Ning Xuema's world, there were plenty of them. In all kinds of palace dramas, this kind of character was endless, so she was already immune to this kind of person. Her provocative words were treated like dog farts, and she didn't take it to heart at all. The feeling of hunger in her stomach was even stronger now. It was as if her heart and liver were being scratched and her legs were a little weak. She looked calm on the surface, but she was anxious on the inside. Lu Xin obviously came with ill intentions. If Ning Xuema wasn't in such a state, she might be able to fight Lu Xin to a draw. However, in her current state, it was extremely disadvantageous for her. Lu Xin, why didn't you stay by your fiancé's side in the Sun Moon sect? What are you doing here? Could it be that your fiancé still can't forget about me, causing you to be jealous? But you don't dare to find trouble with him, so you came to find trouble with me? In terms of venomous words, Ning Xuema was not inferior to Lu Xin. Lu Xin's pretty face changed slightly, but she immediately smiled again. I said that I was ordered by him to take the life of your child. How could he still be thinking about you? If you didn't cause a ruckus at our engagement banquet, he wouldn't have even thought of you. Chapter 1466. You don't know how good he is to me. We eat and sleep together. He can't leave me even for a moment? Oh, is that so? Ning Xuema crossed her arms. Aren't you imagining things? If he really treats you well, why would he send you to do such a despicable thing? If this matter spreads to the martial arts world, your reputation will be greatly affected. Lu Xin was speechless. She didn't expect Ning Xuema to be so sharp-tongued. She didn't know what to say. Ning Xuema smiled again. What's the matter? Did I step on your sore spot? Ning Xuema took a few steps forward and stared at her intently. He doesn't even know that you're here, right? You know that I'm pregnant and you're afraid that I'll use the child as a reason to come here secretly. You want to kill me and the child without anyone knowing, right? Lu Xin pursed her red lips and clenched her fists in her sleeves. Ning Xuema was like a roundworm in her stomach. She had exposed her wishful thinking. She looked down at Ning Xuema. She couldn't help but admit that this human woman was terrifyingly smart. No wonder he couldn't forget about her and even called out her name when he was unconscious. Her conspiracy had been exposed. There was no point in hiding it anymore. Lu Xin sighed softly. You can think whatever you want. However, I think I should make one thing clear. I'm not here to kill you. I just want to kill your child. It's a bastard and shouldn't have come to this world. So, it's better to end it as soon as possible. Ning Xuema, no matter what, you and my brother D are no longer together. Why do you want to have his child? It's better to end it once and for all. This way you won't feel burdened when you marry someone else. It won't be easy for you to find another man with a child. Look, I'm actually quite considerate of you, right? Ning Xuema's pretty face turned cold. She was shocked by Lu Xin's theory. For a fairy to say such a strange thing, she must be drunk. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but her face suddenly turned pale. Her body swayed slightly, but she quickly steadied herself. Lu Xin, how do you know that the child in my stomach is his? Lu Xin stared at her face and slowly landed on the ground. She took 2 steps forward and smiled again. She said leisurely, you probably don't know my identity, right? I am from the noblest Jade Waterfox clan in this world. The Jade Waterfox clan has a special ability, and my special ability is that I can see through things with my eyes. I can see where the disease is, and naturally I can see that there is a little bastard in your stomach. Ning Xuema was speechless. So this fox had a pair of X-ray eyes. But this doesn't prove that the child is his. After all, to the people of this world, I haven't seen him for 10 years. Ning Xuema wasn't stupid. She didn't mention the child at Shinjioli's engagement party because she didn't want to talk about the child. If her love could only be won by the child, then what was the difference between it and a shotgun marriage? She would rather not have such a love. Secondly, she understood that under such circumstances, even if she suppressed her anger and told him about the child, Shinjioli might not believe her. To him, she had been separated from him for 10 years. How could he believe that the child in her stomach was only 4 months old? It was impossible. There was no DNA test in this world and the child was still in her stomach. Chapter 1467. There was no DNA verification in this world. Furthermore, the child was still in her womb. Even if they used the unreliable method of blood identification, they would have to wait until the child was born. If she had gritted her teeth and said it, no one would have believed her. She would have just been asking for humiliation. How did Lizine know that her baby was Shinjioli's? This was what Ning Xuema couldn't understand the most. Lizine probably wanted to show off her abilities. She smiled and said, "The bastard in your womb is already 4 months old, but your belly doesn't show at all. Furthermore, it's much smaller than a normal human fetus. It's obviously developing later. It's so small yet it's so restless. Its limbs are much stronger than a normal fetus. More importantly, there's a trace of purplish gold light around its body. I've only seen this on Brother D. Therefore I guess that it's his bastard. Do you have any objections?" Ning Xuema was speechless. It seemed that Lizine's eyes were indeed special. She could only see the child's appearance when she used her inner vision. She couldn't see any purplish gold light at all. "Lizine, it seems that you know a lot about a pregnant woman's fetus. You can even say what the month should look like so accurately. Are you a midwife?" Lizine was furious. How can I, a fox immortal, do such a lowly job? In fact, ever since she discovered that she had this ability, she specially went to the human world to observe all kinds of people. Among them, she paid the most attention to pregnant women. Of course, she couldn't tell Ning Xuema about this. She sized up Ning Xuema. "Ning Xuema, you seem to be stalling for time by talking to me like this. Are you waiting for reinforcements?" She tilted her head and thought for a while. Then she smiled again. "You want to wait for Helian Shao to come? That child won't be able to come for a while. He's still in one place. He won't come out for a day and a night. Even if he comes, he won't be able to save you." Helian Shao really came out? Ning Xuema took a step forward. "Lizine, what did you do to him?" Lizine pursed her lips. "Nothing. He's the most promising child in Brother D's sect. I can't wait to dote on him. How could I bear to do anything to him?" She looked at Ning Xuema again and said sincerely, "I'm an immortal. I don't kill easily. I don't even want your life. I'm just waiting for that bastard to fall out, and then I'll let you go. Look, I'm still very kind." Ning Xuema chuckled. What a pity that your scheme didn't succeed. I didn't eat any peaches." Lizine suddenly laughed. "Ning Xuema, you're very smart. However, do you really think that I only have the falling infant peach? Since I don't want you to keep this child, I naturally have to come up with a foolproof plan. Have you been feeling especially hungry and feverish? Why do my hands and feet feel cold?" Ning Xuema's expression changed. What Lizine said was indeed her current symptoms. She slowly clenched her fingers. "What else did you do?" Lizine looked at her happily. "You know too little about the Jade Water Fox clan. Thousands of years ago, the Jade Water continent's resources were exhausted because of our excessive reproduction. Therefore, the elders of the Lake clan thought of a special method. They released a type of poison in the air. This poison is colorless and odorless. It's nothing to ordinary people, but if a pregnant woman smells it, she'll automatically abort her baby." Chapter 1468. The symptoms before miscarriage is when the fetus is struggling in the womb. The pregnant woman will feel extremely hungry and weak, and her stomach will heat up. Normally, after an hour, even the healthiest baby will fall out. Ning Xuema's face turned pale and she took a step back. No, she didn't believe it. There was no poison in this world that she couldn't smell. If there was such a poison in the air, she would definitely be able to detect it. Lizine must be trying to scare her. It must be. Nothing would happen to her baby. It was the child of God. Back when she was thrown into the ice purgatory and boiled in the copper cauldron, her baby could still survive. It was impossible for it to fall out after smelling the poison of the Fox clan. Lizine looked at her pale face and became even more proud. Only the Fox clan's clan leader and the elder who executes this method know how to use this secret technique. Moreover, the elder's identity is very mysterious. Even the people of the Fox clan don't know about it. They don't even know about this secret technique. And I was once the elder who was given this special mission. I have already used it more than 10 times and no one was lucky enough to escape. Ning Xuema. She didn't want to talk to Lizine now. She had to protect her baby. Her stomach was indeed heating up, and the burning sensation in her stomach was like a knife scraping her stomach. Not only was she hungry, but she was also starting to feel pain. It was as if something couldn't endure and wanted to eat her flesh. Something was wrong. Something was really wrong. The reason why she was stalling for time was because she had released a colorless and odorless poison in the air. This poison could make a person's limbs go weak after an hour. Lizine had schemed against her baby, so how could Ning Xuema let her off so easily? Therefore, she had already vowed to teach Lizine a lesson that she would remember for the rest of her life. She had talked so much with Lizine because she was waiting for the poison to take effect. However, she didn't expect that Lizine had already set a trap for her and poisoned her. Ning Xuemo retreated step by step. She could take revenge on Lizine later. She had to leave immediately to see her baby. What's wrong? Are you scared? Lizine approached him step by step and smiled even more proudly. I forgot to tell you that the falling infant peach is also a specialty of our jade water. It's normal to eat this kind of peach normally. However, even if a pregnant woman were to smell it or touch it, she would be infected with the smell of peaches. Coupled with my special poison skills, even an iron fetus would fall from my body. So, Ning Xuema, don't make any more useless struggles. Your child can't be saved. She raised her head to look at the sun in the sky before her gaze landed on Ning Xuema's stomach. It's almost time. Right now your stomach is starting to hurt. That vile spawn is already struggling with all its might and crying. It doesn't want to leave this world. Ning Xuema's face turned pale. She really did have a stomachache. The pain in his abdomen was like a knife being twisted. Her fetus was already moving violently just now, and now it was even more violent. She couldn't care less about anything else. She didn't even care that her love rival, Lizine, was watching her like a tiger watching its prey. She immediately used her inner vision to check. She found that the fluid in her womb had turned red and muddy. The small fetus was struggling painfully inside, bobbing up and down in the amniotic fluid. Lizine didn't take advantage of Ning Xuema's inner vision to plot against her. She had probably been waiting for this scene, so she stood there leisurely and didn't forget to mock and ridicule her. Chapter 1469. How is it? I didn't lie to you, did I? It's about to die. Her words were like knives that pierced through Gu Shijio's heart. Ning Xuemo raised her head abruptly. Her watery eyes were slightly red. She said word by word, "Give me the antidote. Lizine, if anything happens to my baby, I'll make sure you die with him." Haha, you have to have the ability to do so. Ning Xuema, you're just a little human. What right do you have to fight with me, a fox immortal? What right do you have to fight with me for the same man? Lizine said happily. She seemed to have been holding it in for a long time. Now that she could finally vent her anger, she naturally wouldn't let go of any chance to attack Gu Shijio. Ning Xuema looked down. Don't I have the chance? Lizine, touch something 3 inches below your ribs. Lizine laughed. Who are you trying to scare? Although she said that, she still touched the area below her ribs. Her expression suddenly changed. The area 3 inches below her ribs felt like she was stung by a wasp. It was as painful as being cut by a knife. The pain shuttled through her body like electricity, directly hitting her limbs and bones. Cold sweat instantly appeared on her forehead. She took 2 steps back. Ew. What did you do to me? Poison. Ning Xuema's words were concise and comprehensive. You schemed against my child, so I originally wanted to teach you a lesson. That's why I poisoned you just now. I didn't stall for time to wait for reinforcements, but for the poison to flare up. Lizine, give me the antidote and I'll let you live. Lizine was speechless. She started to retreat step by step. As she tried to expel the poison, she said, "Let me think." Think? Ning Xuema didn't have time for her to think. She had taken a few pregnancy-stabilizing drugs and even used her with psychokinesis to purify the blood in her womb. However, it was useless. She had never seen Lizine's poison before. She couldn't make the antidote at the moment. In this situation, she didn't have the time to make a new antidote. Therefore, her only hope was to snatch it from Lizine. The struggle of the baby in her belly had slowed down. It was obvious that it could not hold on any longer. The anger in Ning Xuema's chest surged like a tidal wave, but she had to remain calm at this moment. Suppressing the pain in her stomach, she stretched out her hand and a sharp steel knife appeared in her palm. In a flash, she pointed the tip of the knife at Lizine's chest. I'll give you 3 seconds. If you don't take out the antidote, I'll make you regret being born in this world. Her movements were as fast as lightning. Lizine was trying her best to expel the poison from her body, so she couldn't dodge at all. Seeing Ning Xuema pointing the steel knife at her chest, Lizine shouted, "Ning Xuema, you can't hurt me. If you hurt me, he won't let you off." Ning Xuema's response to her was to stab her. Lizine wanted to dodge but failed. Although she managed to avoid being stabbed in the chest, she was stabbed in the ribs by Ning Xuema. Fresh blood immediately gushed out and Lizine let out a blood-curdling scream. She wanted to retreat, but Ning Xuema grabbed her by the collar. She couldn't retreat anymore. Ning Xuema slowly turned the steel knife in her right hand on Lizine's flesh. The antidote. Lizine's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. She didn't know what kind of curse Ning Xuema's steel saber had attached to it, but it was actually able to pierce through Lizine's protective barrier in an instant. Not only did it pierce through her flesh but it also pierced through her bone marrow. Okay, I'll give it to you. Let me go. Lizine couldn't help but beg for mercy. She started to regret not escaping in time. Take it now. Ning Xuema wouldn't let her go. Chapter 1470. Lizine was in so much pain that she wanted to push Ning Xuema away. However, her limbs were weak, she could only search around her body. After a while she found a small jade bottle. This is the antidote. Take 3 pills. Ning Xuema snatched the jade bottle. There were several red pills rolling around inside. Without thinking she poured out 3 pills and stuffed them into Lizine's mouth. Swallow them. Lizine knew that she did not trust her and wanted her to test the medicine. Hence, she swallowed them and opened her mouth to show Ning Xuema. I swallowed them. I'm not lying to you. Alright, we'll do as you said. I'll give you the antidote and you let me go. Ning Xuema swung her hand and flung her onto a large rock. She then proceeded to seal several of her major acupoints. Lizine was paralyzed on the ground like a dead fish, unable to move. Her expression changed. Ning Xuema, you didn't keep your words. As long as my baby is fine, I'll let you go immediately. If you continue to play tricks, Lizine, you can't imagine the consequences. Lizine's face was still pale. She closed her eyes. You can try it. Ning Xuema's stomach was in so much pain. She had tried all kinds of methods but none of them could stop the pain. Although she had never had a miscarriage before, the symptoms were too obvious. If she did not make a decision soon, she would lose her baby. She had no other way out. Hence she threatened Lizine. Seeing that Lizine had no other reaction and did not seem to be up to any tricks, she could only try her best and trust her this time. She finally swallowed the antidote and sat there carefully, waiting for the pain to disappear. Little Munchkin, nothing must happen to you. You must hang in there. You must stay with Mommy. You're the only one left. You must hang in there. Don't leave me. Mommy bought you a lot of good things. There's food, useful things, and clothes. You'll definitely like them. So, you must survive and hang in there. You're so obedient. You're so considerate. You must be reluctant to leave Mommy, right? So hang in there. Baby, you have to hold on. Her forehead was covered in cold sweat and so were her palms. Not only was it painful but more importantly, it was fear. He had never been so scared before. As time passed, the tearing pain in his stomach seemed to show signs of subsiding. Ning Xuema sat there in a daze. Her full attention was attracted by the movement in her belly. She used her psychokinesis to carefully protect that place so that it would not vibrate at all. Lizine collapsed on the big rock at the side. She didn't say a word and just closed her eyes. She didn't know if it was because of the shock or the pain, but she was sweating profusely. Beads of sweat rolled down her skin like sparkling pearls. After about half an hour, the pain in Ning Xuema's stomach finally subsided. She heaved a sigh of relief and immediately used her inner vision to check. Then she found that the fetus's body was slowly straightening. What was going on? Ning Xuema felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Just as she was about to take a closer look, she suddenly felt a surge of heat in the indescribable part of her dress. With a splash, it dyed her dress red. Ning Xuema's fingers trembled. She reached out and touched the liquid on her dress. It was sticky and bright red. It was blood. Her vision suddenly turned black. It was as if she had been hit in the face with a stick. It also felt as if she was falling into the depths of a dark ice abyss. Chapter 1471. Her stomach started to hurt again. This time it was a dull pain, as if something was being peeled off inch by a small knife. Waves of heat flowed out from under his body, one after another. Her mind was blank. Her hands trembled as she desperately pressed on her acupoints and covered her stomach. She used every method she could think of to try and persuade him to stay. There seemed to be a cry in her mind. The cry was weak and sharp and it was heartbreaking. It seemed to be calling for her mother, but it also seemed to be crying out in pain. It made Ning Xuema's heart feel like it was being torn apart. It was so painful that her vision turned black. She had completely forgotten about her existence. She just mechanically busied herself again and again. No one could understand her feelings of despair at this moment. At this moment, it was as if everything in the world had lost its color and turned into black and white. The blood soaked through her dress. The blood that was originally warm now made her feel extremely cold, extremely cold. She had lost her treasure in the end. Lost. He had lost it. A sorrowful aura was emitted from her body. The surrounding air became cold and the green grass around her started to freeze. Lizine, who had been paralyzed beside her, suddenly jumped up. She was in so much pain that she was sweating profusely. However, she had finally used her immortal power to force the poison out of her body. The layer of sweat just now was from when she was forcing the poison out of her body. She was really frightened at that time. She was afraid that Ning Xuema would see through her little trick. Fortunately, Ning Xuema's attention was completely focused on the child, so she simply didn't notice her. It seemed like she really cared about the bastard in her stomach. Without the child, she would not be able to pester her brother D in the future. Only then could brother D truly let go and accept her, and not just help her pass the lightning tribulation. After she had almost cleared the poison, she started to use her immortal power to break through the sealed acupoints. After all, she was an immortal and a medical immortal. Therefore, although she did not know Ning Xuema's special acupoint sealing technique, she still managed to break through it in a short time. The moment she broke through it was also the moment Ning Xuema really miscarried. When she jumped up, she felt an indescribable sense of relief in her heart. The poison was detoxified, the acupoints were unsealed, the wounds were healed, and her power was almost completely restored. What was there to be afraid of? There was nothing to be afraid of. The moment she jumped up, she subconsciously glanced at Ning Xuema. Her heart suddenly turned cold. Ning Xuema's aura was too cold. That cold aura formed an inexplicably powerful pressure that spread out in all directions. The plants withered and the flowers withered. There was originally no wind in the valley, but at this moment, a cold gust of wind blew, causing Luzine, who was a fox immortal, to tremble. When Luzine jumped up, she originally wanted to plot against Ning Xuema and take the opportunity to get rid of all future troubles. However, when she saw Ning Xuema's current state, she didn't dare to do so. Pausing for a moment, he suddenly turned around and flew away. Forget it. Since the vile spawn had been eliminated, this human woman would not be able to cause much trouble. There was no need for her to waste any more time here. She floated up. Her posture was very graceful and peerless. She was indescribably beautiful. However, Ning Xuema did not raise her head. She seemed to be completely immersed in sorrow and could not extricate herself. The flowers and trees around her were completely frozen. That murderous aura made people tremble uncontrollably. Lizine was overjoyed. Just as she was about to fly faster, she slammed into something with a bang. She was caught off guard and was dizzy from the impact. Her forehead was burning with pain. Chapter 1472. She quickly stabilized herself and raised her hand to touch it. There was a bump. She was shocked and looked up. Not far above her, there was a light red barrier. That barrier seemed to have blood flowing on it, flashing with a mysterious and ominous light. She had bumped into it just now, which was why she almost fell down. Her heart suddenly sank. This human girl actually knew how to set up this kind of barrier. How could it be? Even she, who had reached heaven rank level 1, could not set up this kind of barrier. Wasn't this human girl Earth rank level 9? How could it be? She subconsciously looked at Ning Xuema and her heart turned cold again. Ning Xuema had already stood up and was looking at her. Lizine had never seen such cold and dark eyes in her life. It seemed like there was 1,000-year-old ice hidden in those eyes. When she looked at her, she felt the coldness penetrating her bones. Lizine's legs turned to jelly. Her intuition told her to run immediately. She had to run immediately. She immediately turned around and flew to the side. There was no barrier there, so she could go there. Bang! She bumped into it again. Looking up, the barrier had completely opened up in the air. It was like an eggshell surrounding her in the middle. It was gathering towards her from all directions. Her face was pale, but her brain was still very active. Since there was no way out in all directions, she would use the earth burrowing technique. Although she was not proficient in using the earth burrowing technique and it was a little ugly when she used it, she would get dirt all over her body. It did not match her beautiful image. But in order to save her life, she could only do this. She made up her mind and chanted the earth burrowing technique. She plunged into the ground not far away from her. Pooh! With a sound, her body indeed plunged into the ground. This was a hillside after all. There were rocks everywhere. She was not proficient in this technique, so it was inevitable that her face was scratched by the rocks. She did not know where her body was burning with pain. She did not care about these. After burrowing into the ground, she immediately began to rush forward. Bang! She did not know what her forehead had bumped into. She groaned and looked up. There was a huge black tree root in front of her. She was using the earth technique. The tree root was made of wood and would restrain earth. It immediately blocked her path. Her expression changed. She had been on the ground for a long time, so she was naturally clear about the surrounding environment. There was no tree with such thick roots at this distance. In other words, this was Ning Xuema's doing. She turned around and flew back. Similarly, a huge tree root appeared in front of her to block her path. She became more and more flustered and changed directions several times, but she was blocked by the sudden appearance of huge tree roots. A moment later, her surroundings were completely covered by the roots. There was not a single gap. Not a single strand of her hair could escape. Her burrowing technique could not last for long. After a few rounds, she was already feeling short of breath. Coupled with the frequent collisions, she felt dizzy. No, if she didn't go up now, she would suffocate to death here. She disregarded everything and rushed upwards. But when she was about to reach the ground above her head was suddenly filled with tree roots. At this time she was really afraid. She opened her mouth and wanted to shout. But when she was using the earth burrowing technique, she could not speak. She could not even open her mouth. Once she opened her mouth, a huge pile of soil and rocks would rush into her mouth. It was as if she was locked in an incomparably thick wooden coffin. And the coffin was filled with soil and rocks. This was obviously being buried alive. Chapter 1473. Lizine was scared out of her wits. She did not expect Ning Xuema, a mere human, to be so powerful. She had miscalculated. She had really miscalculated. Although she knew that she would have to face Ning Xuema's crazy revenge after she got out, she had to go out now. She took out her sword and slashed at the roots with all her might. The roots around her were as hard as iron. She could not use her psychokinesis underground, so after failing to cut the roots around her, she turned to cut the dense roots above her head. She felt dizzy from holding her breath, but she realized in despair that the roots above her head looked weak, but they were extremely tough. She cut layer after layer. Although the earth escape technique allowed her to walk underground, there was a limit to how deep she could go. She could not go any further than that. Especially since this was a rocky slope, there were many big rocks below. She could not go any further. Now there was no way out. She was losing more and more strength, and her fingernails were curled up and bloody from desperately tearing at the roots. She was going to die. She was going to be buried alive here. She was engulfed in despair. Her vision turned black. She had already reached heaven rank level 1. She did not need to breathe anymore. She could use her psychokinesis to convert the substances in the air into breathable substances to survive. However, she could not do it here. She tried her best to convert her psychokinesis, but she could not do it. She held her breath until her eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Her vision became darker and darker. Finally, she lost all her strength and was about to faint. Her body twitched unconsciously. Just when she thought she was going to die and her soul left her body, she felt a sharp pain in her back. A wooden splinter pierced into her back and she let out a hoarse scream. Her entire body was suddenly pulled out by the wooden splinter. Puff! She crawled out from the ground and fell to the ground like a dead fish. The sudden light and air made her open her mouth wide, but she could not breathe for a moment. She still had a mouthful of dirt and mud. She coughed violently and finally spat out the dirt and mud. A large amount of air rushed into her lungs. She breathed greedily, ignoring the piercing pain in her back. When she finally managed to catch her breath and open her eyes again, her body trembled and her pupils suddenly shrank. Ning Xuema was standing in front of her, looking down at her from above. That gaze was too cold and unfathomable. It seemed to freeze all the blood vessels in her body. Spare me. Lizine was so scared that her heart curled up. She didn't care about anything else and knelt down. Spare me, I didn't do it on purpose. There's no antidote for this kind of poison, so I just gave you a random healing medicine. I didn't have a choice. Before she could finish her messy explanation, her mouth suddenly felt like it was being held by an invisible hand. Her chin was almost crushed. She opened her mouth subconsciously. A red light flashed in Ning Shuima's hand. Luzine let out an agonizing cry and her tongue flew out of her mouth, disappearing into nothingness in the air. Luzine, I've said that you'll pay the price for killing my child. Ning Shuima's eyes were bloodshot, and her long hair was flying wildly. She stood there with blood all over her body. She looked like an Azura from hell. Now it's time for you to pay the price. She slowly reached out her hand and touched Luzine's eyelids with her fingertips. Chapter 1474. She slowly stretched out her hand and touched Luzine's eyelids with her fingertips. Her fingertips were cold, and Luzine was so scared that her lips started to tremble. She tried her best to move back and say no, but she did not have a tongue. No. Under Ning Shuima's gaze, she was like a little chick being stared at by an eagle. Her body was stiff and trembling so hard that she could not even dodge. Are these eyes used to harm people? Ning Shuima whispered. Her voice was equally cold. Then don't keep them. She moved her finger. Luzine let out a beast-like cry and her eyes disappeared. Blood spurted out and sprayed onto Ning Shuima's body. The air was filled with the smell of blood. Luzine was in so much pain that she fell to the ground and rolled around. She was wrong. She was wrong. She should not have provoked this human woman. She probably couldn't keep this body anymore. She had to think of another way to escape. Otherwise, this crazy human woman might just destroy her soul. She tried her best to use spells to free her soul, but Ning Shuima seemed to have guessed her intentions. With a wave of her hand, a peachwood sword pierced Luzine's chest. Blood spurted out again. Ning Shuima did not dodge and the blood splashed onto her body. The blood of her enemy allowed her to feel the warmth of this world. It allowed her to know that her blood was still boiling. Baby, the road to the netherworld is cold. Wait for Mommy. Mommy will accompany you after killing your enemy. Don't be afraid. Her sword pierced her immortal meridian, so Luzine could no longer escape from her body. This woman was crazy. Luzine was panicking. She shouted in deep language, Ning Shuima, you can't kill me. He won't let you go. He will do the same to you. Her voice was sharp and ear-piercing, almost piercing through the clouds. Ning Shuima ignored her and stabbed her sword again. Luzine groaned again. She was stabbed in her abdomen, and she could no longer speak in deep language. Luzine's body trembled like a leaf in the wind. A strange sound came from her throat, like the screeching of a bird. Ning Shuima looked down at her and a boning knife slowly appeared in her hand. Luzine, I'm not afraid of anyone's revenge. If you provoke me, you'll have to pay the price. A look of disgust appeared in her eyes. Although the miserable state of her enemy eased the pain in her heart, her treasure was still lost. So what if she cut Luzine into 1,000 pieces? Her baby wouldn't come back either. The treasure was the only thing that kept her alive. Now her last hope had been cruelly taken away by someone else. The heavens had completely destroyed her. She suddenly raised her head and laughed. Luzine, since you've provoked me, I'll let you have a taste of the 18 levels of hell. I'll peel off your fox skin and pluck out your fox tendons. Although Luzine was blind, she wasn't deaf. When she heard Ning Shuima's threat, her body trembled even more violently. She forced herself to speak in deep language, just kill me. Her abdomen was pierced and her deep language was in a mess. It was so vague that it was almost impossible to hear clearly. Ning Shuima didn't say anything, but her eyes were dead. She couldn't be bothered to torture Luzine anymore. The boning knife in her hand flashed and she stabbed it towards Luzine's heart. Chi! A white light suddenly flashed down from the sky. It directly hit Ning Shuima's wrist that was holding the knife. Ning Shuima's wrist trembled, and the boning knife fell to the ground. Chapter 1475. That white light was very familiar. That white light used to be the warmth in the depths of her heart. Many times when she was in danger, it was this white light that appeared in time to save her. Every time she saw this white light, her heart would beat faster. It was both sweet and sour. Now she saw this white light again. However, this white light was targeting her. It wanted to save the woman lying on the ground. Ning Shuima did not raise her head. The moment her bone-paring knife fell to the ground, another steel knife appeared in her hand. She stabbed it at Luzine without caring about anything else. This woman must be buried with her baby. No one could stop her. Stop! An angry shout came from the sky. That person seemed to be really angry. Another white light was shot over. This time he did not show any mercy. With lightning speed and terrifying strength, this white light hit Ning Shuima's stomach. Not only did it send her knife flying, but it also sent her flying like a kite with a broken string. Bam! Her body hit a big tree. The tree shook as if there was an earthquake. Ning Xuema spat out blood. Her body slid down the tree and fell to the ground. Her eyes were a little blurry and she saw stars. Her stomach hurt. The child was no longer there. Before she tortured Lizine, the child had already disappeared from her stomach. When it fell out, it was the size of a pigeon egg. It was so small that its head and limbs could be separated. It just lay in her palm without moving. It would never kick her palm in her stomach again. It would never use its small palm to mischievously slide across her stomach to prove its existence. He would no longer use his little butt to make her happy when she was sad. She was a miracle doctor, but she could not protect her child no matter how hard she tried. It was such a small ball of meat, but it had brought her so much hope. It was the only thing that kept her going. From the moment the child fell out, from the moment she could no longer make that lump of flesh move no matter what she did, her heart had completely died. All that was left was bone-deep hatred and bone-deep madness. At that moment she only wanted to cut Lizine into pieces. And that was exactly what she did. She just did not expect him to appear in time to save that woman. How timely. If he had come one step later, she would have given that woman a quick death. Right now, her only regret was that she hadn't been able to end that woman earlier. So much so that she no longer had the chance. With a god like him protecting her, how could she have a chance? There was no chance. Her abdomen was in so much pain that it was scratching her heart and liver. It had always been in pain and had never stopped. Being slapped by him was just more pain on top of the pain. The extreme pain was numbness. Now, even her heart was numb from the pain. So what if her body was hit again? He didn't care anymore. She didn't care. Her vision darkened slightly, and a person came in front of her. The corner of his fluttering white robe touched her cheek. Shueyemo, how can you be so vicious? That person opened his mouth, his voice icy cold as if carrying the air of winter. Ning Xuemo raised her head in disgust, avoiding the corner of his robe that floated over unintentionally. She slowly got up. Her whole body was in pain, but she didn't seem to feel any more pain. Her feet seemed to be stepping on empty air, unable to find solid ground. Her whole body was bathed in blood, but her back was straight. Her gaze finally landed on his face. She looked at the man she had loved for 2 lifetimes, at the man who stood up for another woman and taught her a lesson. Chapter 1476. He was no longer the person who loved her so much. He was no longer the great god who spoiled her to the bone. He was no longer the person she relied on when she was at her most desperate. Everything had changed since that time on Luoying Cliff when he kissed her forehead and asked her to wait for him obediently. He had completely forgotten everything about her. She was the only one who still held on to that memory, unable to throw it away. It had changed, everything had changed. He was now Lizine's support, Lizine's fiancé. He had come to stand up for Lizine. Haha, vicious? Yes, in his eyes in this life she had always been vicious. Her head rumbled. The extreme pain and despair made her blood rush to the top of her head. She suddenly laughed, her laughter sharp. Ha, yes, I've always been vicious. Shinjuli, this isn't the first day you know. Shinjuli's face was ashen. She was covered in blood from head to toe. Even her hair was dripping with blood. She looked like she had been fished out of a pool of blood. Only her small face was deathly pale. Her lips were stained with blood. He didn't know if it was hers or Lizine's. Her current appearance was like a thorn in his eye. It also made him even angrier. Although she was covered in blood, her clothes weren't torn at all. Clearly this blood was splashed on her when she was torturing Lizine. Her cruel methods made people's hair stand on end. She was even more vicious than the demons in the demon world. He suddenly looked away. His fingers clenched in his sleeves. He said in a low voice, Shueyemo, don't force me to kill you. Kill her? Haha, you think I'm afraid. Ning Xuema looked up to the sky and laughed as if she was laughing at him for telling a joke. She didn't say anything to him. Instead she suddenly flashed. A red dagger flew out, stabbing towards Lizine who was not far away. She was crazy. She dared to do this in front of him. Shinjuli rolled up his sleeves. The wind from his sleeves turned the dagger into powder on the spot. He raised his hand and pressed Ning Xuema against a nearby tree. His eyes were bone-chilling. Ning Xuema, do you really think I won't kill you? He directly lifted her up, and there was a white light in his palm that was about to spit it out. She had killed the people around him again and again. Her methods were cruel and she showed no remorse. She said she was Ning Xuema, not Shueyemo. but her methods were even worse than Shui Yimou's. He had indulged her too much. Did he really think that he was a fake god? His body gave off a chilling aura. He was still wearing a mask, and the black eyes behind the mask were filled with killing intent. Ning Xuema's body was still dripping with blood. She was also looking at him, staring at him as if this was the first day she knew him, the first day she knew him as a person. The look in her eyes was frighteningly unfamiliar. Such a gaze made Shinjuli feel a chill in his heart. "Shinjuli, I hate you," she spat out word by word, her eyes filled with hatred. Shinjuli's hand froze. "What? What right do you have to hate me?" She hated him? Why should she hate him? Between the two of them, he was clearly the one who had been schemed against. What right did she have to hate him? Ning Xuema no longer looked at him. She laughed louder and louder. She laughed so hard that she almost couldn't breathe. She laughed so hard that she suddenly opened her mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood, which landed on Shinjuli's lapel. The blood was bright red and carried a fishy sweet smell. It was like the winter sweet blooming on his snow-white lapel. It was a dazzling red. Shinjuli's hand trembled and suddenly let go. Ning Xuema slid down and fell to the ground. Chapter 1477. Shui Yimou, this seat will let you off this once. You're on your own. He didn't look at her anymore. Turning around, he waved his hand towards Lizine. A ball of white light flashed, and Lizine on the ground revealed her original form. A originally snow-white nine-tailed fox, but now its fur was dirty, most of it dyed red with blood. Its originally watery eyes were left with 2 bloody holes, and most of its tongue was missing. Its 4 limbs were broken and there were several bone-deep wounds on its body. Flesh lacerated. Truly flesh lacerated. It was paralyzed there, its body trembling non-stop. Shinjuli frowned. Raising his sleeve, a white light shot out, enveloping the fox in a barrier. Then he turned around and left with it. He had to treat it immediately or else it would really be crippled. It was implicated by him and also came to pick herbs for him. Now that it was tortured to this state, he couldn't absolve himself of the blame. He didn't want to look at Ning Xuema anymore in case he couldn't control his anger and really killed her. He flew up, and behind him came Ning Xuema's faint whisper like a curse. "Shinjuli, you'll regret it." Shinjuli's feet paused slightly. Just as he was about to turn around, he saw a red figure flying in this direction from the corner of his eye. Shuilan. He still appeared in the end. Shinjuli didn't want to be entangled with him at this time. Without any hesitation, a white light flashed and he disappeared in the air. The surroundings regained its tranquility. On the ground there were broken trees, rolling boulders and dripping blood. The wind blew, blowing Ning Xuema's messy hair. There was still the smell of blood in the air. Ning Xuema sat with her back against the big tree, not getting up. She was too lazy to use her psychokinesis to control it. Blood gushed out from between her legs again, stream after stream, as if it was endless. Through her blood-stained skirt, it formed a small blood puddle on the ground, and that blood puddle was rapidly expanding. She looked up at the sky towards the depths of the white clouds. "Baby, I'm sorry. Mommy is useless. I didn't get revenge for you. Mommy is coming to accompany you. It's lonely on the road to the netherworld. Let's keep each other company." When Shuilan arrived, he saw this scene. Ning Xuema was lying on the ground, covered in blood. Her eyes were staring blankly at the sky, motionless. "Momo." Shuilan's legs almost went soft. He was stunned for a moment before he rushed over and hugged her in his arms. "Momo, which bastard hurt you?" Ning Xuema stared blankly at the sky. She didn't seem to see him, nor did she struggle. Her entire body seemed to have fallen into a void world, and she was no longer able to sense anything that was happening outside. "Momo?" Shuilan could feel that her body was gradually turning cold, and her face was getting paler and paler. Under the sunlight, her lips were so pale that they were almost transparent. It was as if the slightest touch would shatter her entire body. Shuilan's heart was beating wildly. This was the first time he saw her in such a dispirited and desperate state. Although she was still alive, she seemed to have lost all her vitality. Her whole body was covered in blood, but her skirt was not torn. He couldn't see any wounds either. Where exactly was she bleeding? Shuilan was determined to check her injuries, but when he reached out his hand, he seemed to have thought of something and paused. His Momo didn't like him touching her body. Because of this, she had fought with him several times. He froze for a moment before he finally asked, "Momo, where are you hurt?" "I'll stop the bleeding first." She couldn't let it continue like this. she would bleed to death. Chapter 1478. Ning Xuema acted as if she didn't hear his question. Although her eyes were wide open, they didn't reflect any light. They were as dead as a black hole. Shui Yilan was frightened by her expression. He had seen Ning Xuema disappear into the black hole when he was in the outer space. He tried his best to find the black hole, but he could not find it no matter how hard he tried. Like a headless fly, he passed through one space door after another. In the end, he lost his way and could not find his way home. Passing through the space door required a sufficient amount of psychokinesis. He tried his best not to consume too much psychokinesis. In order to find Ning Xuema, he could only find a place to rest when he was at the end of his tether. After a while, his body could not take it anymore. He fell seriously ill on a foreign planet. Unfortunately, the planet was full of primitive people. There was almost no civilization. Naturally, there were no herbs to cure his illness. Moreover, the environment there was very bad. He could not absorb enough spiritual energy. This illness almost took his life. If he did not have a protective barrier around him, the primitive people and wild beasts on the planet would have eaten him. This illness trapped him on the planet for 8 years. If he used his sorcery to suck the blood and souls of the primitive people, he might be able to recover faster. However, when he caught the primitive people and was about to use his sorcery, he suddenly remembered Ning Xuema. She seemed to hate killing. In the end, he released the primitive people and relied on cultivation to recover bit by bit. After his body recovered more than half, he could not wait to leave the planet. After another round of searching, he finally found the door to this space door 2 years later and came back. He still had a tiny hope in his heart. He wanted to see if Ning Xuema had come back. After asking around, he heard that Ning Xuema danced as a gift during the engagement ceremony of the Sun-Moon sect's Dizun. He was happy but worried at the same time. He immediately began to search for Ning Xuema's whereabouts. After many twists and turns, he finally found her. He finally saw her after 10 years. She was bathed in blood. She was dying. No matter what he asked her, it was as if she couldn't hear a thing. She was like a lifeless porcelain doll, and even her eyelashes were transparent. He held her in his arms, and she was as light as a leaf that could break at any moment. The blood on her dress dripped down along the corner of her clothes, almost forming a line of blood. She was still bleeding. Shui Yilan was so anxious that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He was about to risk being cut by her in the future to check her body. Suddenly, he realized that Ning Xuema was staring straight at him. His heart skipped a beat. "Momo, did you see me? Where are you bleeding? Let me stop the bleeding first." "The child is gone," she murmured. She seemed to be sober and confused at the same time. "I couldn't avenge it. I'm useless." Shui Yilan felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He almost threw Ning Xuema to the ground. "Child?" She had a child. She was bleeding because of a miscarriage. Shui Yilan lowered his head to look at her. His eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Ning Xuema, who was in his arms, suddenly moved slightly. She raised one of her hands as if she wanted to touch something. A smile appeared on her face. "Baby, you're here to pick up Mommy? Mommy will go with you." Her words came to an abrupt end. Her eyes slowly closed and her hand fell limply to her side. Shui Yilan's mind was blown. His fingers trembled as he touched her wrist. Then his expression changed drastically. He flew up with her in his arms. "Momo, don't be afraid. I'll save you. I won't let you die. It's okay. Don't be afraid." Chapter 1479. Lu Xian's injuries were extremely severe. After Xin Zhuli transformed her into a fox, he lifted his finger to stop her bleeding. Its eyeballs had been dug out while it was still alive, and its eyeballs had been completely destroyed by Ning Xuema. It was in so much pain that it kept trembling. Within the protective barrier that he had set up for it, it was in a daze and had no intention of waking up. Its injuries were too severe. Even within the healing barrier that he had set up for it, it was still getting weaker and weaker. Its flower of life was like a candle in the wind, about to be extinguished at any time. He couldn't delay any longer. He couldn't delay a single second. As for how it had met Ning Xuema and why they had fought, he would investigate these reasons in the future. But right now, saving people was more important. He had to save them first. After Xin Zhuli returned, he started to treat its injuries. Chest, stomach, eyes, mouth, limbs. There were penetrating wounds everywhere and many of its organs were failing. It could be seen how ruthless the person who had done this was. Fortunately, It was a nine-tailed fox that had already cultivated to the heaven tier. Otherwise, these injuries would have already taken its life. Shenjuli looked at the wounds on its body, and his fingers stiffened. It wasn't that he had never seen people kill people, but it was really rare to see people kill people to such an extent. This was simply a type of cruel torture. In the end, what kind of conflict did Ning Xuema have with it for her to be so ruthless? It was as if they were mortal enemies. Ning Xuema's eyes, which were filled with hatred, flashed before his eyes, and his heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. Ning Xuema's nature wasn't very kind, and he had long known about this. All these years he had been investigating her both openly and secretly. Although it was a secret that Ning Xuema had used underhanded methods to skin Tui Dao alive, with the help of the Sun Moon Sect's vast intelligence network, Shenjuli still found out about it. Of course, he knew that she had done it to protect herself, and Tui Dao was indeed not a good person. He didn't feel pity for Tui Dao at all. However, it was indeed shocking that a young girl like her could do such a thing. From this incident, it could be seen that she could be ruthless when necessary. After all, he was once the successor of the fiend ancestor. Being vicious and merciless was also a means of survival. Everything he knew about Ning Xuema was negative, so when he saw her brutally torturing Lizine, he was so angry that he didn't even think about why she was doing it. Now that he had calmed down, he began to have doubts. With Ning Xuema's character, she wouldn't do such a thing to Lizine if she didn't have any enmity with her. His gaze fell on the unconscious nine-tailed fox in front of him. Or did Lizine provoke her? But if it was just an ordinary provocation, it wouldn't have provoked such a huge hatred. The image of Ning Xuema flashed before his eyes again. She was covered in blood, and there was not a single spot on her body that was not covered in blood. She was smiling like a demon from hell, and she was even going to attack Lizine in front of him. His heart suddenly began to race. Did Lizine do something irreversible to Ning Xuema? Was that why? If he wanted to know the truth, he only needed to read Lizine's memory to know everything. However, the person needed to be awake to read the memory, and Lizine was now unconscious and dying. Woo! The nine-tailed fox unconsciously let out a painful groan, and her body began to tremble again. He actually got distracted when Lizine was about to die. Shenjuli finally regained his senses and his eyes darkened. Chapter 1480. He had to save it first. When it woke up, he would read its memories. He forced himself to calm down and began to heal Lizine. Time passed slowly. By the time he finished healing it, 4 hours had already passed. All the wounds on its body had stopped bleeding and the places that needed to be stitched up had been stitched up. After a few months of rest, it should be able to fully recover. However, its tongue and eyes could not be healed. He had to leave it as it was and find a replacement in the future. This was the most difficult time for him to control his emotions when he was healing someone. While he was treating Lizine's injuries, Ning Xuema's eyes, which were filled with hatred, flashed in front of his eyes. This made him restless. Ever since he met her again, he had not been able to calm down. Oh whoa! The nine-tailed fox that was enveloped by his white light moaned in pain. Its white fur trembled even more. Shenjuli looked down at it. He had raised many pets in his life and many of them were injured. Thus he was quite familiar with healing them. He had always been a clean person. Whether it was healing animals or humans, he would try his best to avoid physical contact with the other party. This was especially true when it came to females who had cultivated their human forms. Except for that fox from 3,000 years ago, that fox loved to cling to him regardless of whether it was in its human form or its fox form. At first he resisted, but later on he got used to it. I can't think about her anymore. Shenjuli suppressed his chaotic thoughts and focused on healing Lizine. After he was done, Lizine was still in a semi-conscious state. He could not read its memories right away. He stood there for a moment and then walked out. The scenery outside was still the same. Apart from his main hall, there were no other halls on the Tianyin Peak. He looked at where the side hall used to be. After 10 years, not a single trace of the side hall could be seen. In its place there was a large field of herbs. The herbs in the field swayed with the breeze. There was a field of herbs that had bloomed with bright red flowers. The flowers were as red as the morning sun. Unconsciously, he walked over and touched the flowers. In a trance, the flowers seemed to have turned into Ning Xuema's bloody clothes. Shenjuli, I hate you. His hand trembled and he took a step back. The flower was still the flower, not that person. Ning Xuema's figure followed him like a shadow, appearing and disappearing from time to time. His heart inexplicably panicked and tightened. It was as if the most important thing in his life was rapidly leaving him. His gaze finally landed on his clothes. There was still a mouthful of blood that she had spat out. He was obsessed with cleanliness. Normally, he would never let a mouthful of blood get on his body, let alone let the blood stain stay on his body for so long. It was something that could be removed with a cleansing spell, but he didn't want to remove it. He stared blankly at the bloodstains for a moment and walked around the courtyard a few times. In the end, he summoned Yelu Jing in and told him a location, asking him to quickly investigate the whereabouts of Ning Xuema and Shui Yilan. Before he left, he saw Shui Yilan appear. Without a doubt they should be together now. Nothing would happen to her. The ancestor's order was extremely urgent. Yelu Jing and did not dare to delay and went to arrange it personally. Shinjuli walked around the same place again. The uneasiness in his heart grew stronger. The voice transmission talisman on his waist suddenly lit up. He picked it up and Yelu Jing'an's voice came through urgently. Chapter 1481. Master, the spies in the capital of Chongkong Empire just sent news that Shui Yilan was carrying a bloody lady and crazily begging for treatment. He has already smashed several medical centers. What? The cup in Shinjuli's hand slipped and fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. Who is he carrying? He heard his own voice wavering. Although he was 99% sure, he did not dare to believe it. I heard that it's junior sister? Shinjuli's fingers trembled. For Shui Yilan to disregard his identity as a demon to appear and beg for treatment, her injuries must be very critical. How could it be? That's impossible. How could her injuries be so serious? Obviously, at that time he saw Ning Xuema torturing Lizine like a demon from hell. Her methods were so cruel that it made one's hair stand on end. In a fit of rage he slapped her away. He knew that his slap was a little heavy, but he knew his limits. It should be within the range that she could endure. At most, it would only make her spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. It would not endanger her life. Her body was stained with Lizine's blood, and there were no other wounds on her body. Furthermore, she was full of energy when torturing people, so her body should be fine. How could it be? Did any of the doctors that he found survive? What did they say? Shinjuli suppressed the panic in his heart and asked in a low voice. The spies there have already asked. They all said that the lady is like a lamp that has run out of oil. They can't save her. Shinjuli's voice transmission talisman fell to the ground. Master? I also heard some news. I don't know if it's true or not. Speak. The spies said that he had asked several doctors. 2 of them told him that the lady had had a miscarriage and was bleeding profusely. Miscarriage? Bleeding profusely? These 5 words were like a series of thunderbolts, shocking Shinjuli so much that his face turned pale and he was almost speechless. She was pregnant. Pregnant. Who was it? His mind was buzzing and his mind was blank. His hands and feet were ice cold. No. Now is not the time to care about this. She had a miscarriage and was bleeding profusely. It can't be my palm strike. Like a lamp that has run out of oil, there is no way to save the desperate situation. Ning Xuema, was she going to die? Master? Disciple has also heard that Shui Yilan has caused such a huge commotion that it has already alerted the other immortal cultivation sects. Many of the immortal cultivation sects experts are already on their way there. Master. The sound transmission talisman on the ground transmitted Yelu Jing'an's report, but no one was listening anymore. The wind blew and the talisman drifted into the distance, and then slowly burned to ashes. For the first time, Shinjuli's hands and feet began to move before his brain. By the time he regained his senses, he had already left the Sun-Moon sect. He hurriedly used the earth-shrinking technique and rushed towards the vast Sky Empire's capital at lightning speed. Ning Xuema, no matter what, nothing can happen to you. No matter what, I don't want you to die. Shui Yilan was about to go crazy. He had never hated himself for not being a doctor as much as he did today. He could still deal with ordinary injuries, but a miscarriage and bleeding profusely? He really didn't have any experience at all. He didn't even know where to touch her to stop this damned bleeding. He could only find a doctor nearby. Find a midwife. Therefore he boldly carried Ning Xuema, who was covered in blood, and barged into the vast Sky Empire's capital, Fenglai City. This name was changed by Ji Yunhao after he ascended the throne. No one knew what it meant, but it was true that the people were still living and working in peace and contentment. Chapter 1482. Shui Yilan usually went into the city in stealth mode, but this time he couldn't care less. He didn't go through the city gate. Instead, he carried Ning Xuema, who was covered in blood, and descended from the sky. After all, he had been in the city before. Naturally, he knew where the medical centers were and which medical centers had better doctors. Therefore, he directly landed in the courtyard of the medical center. Unfortunately, the doctor in the medical center was more upright. No matter what patient he treated, he had to register and line up. This was the foot of the Son of Heaven, so the people here were very knowledgeable. They had also seen cultivators who could fly. Therefore, when Shui Yilan carried Ning Xuema, who was covered in blood, and landed, they were very surprised, but they didn't panic. It was obvious that he had brought someone to see a doctor. Among the people in the line, there was a bold person who saw Shui Yilan running directly into the room where the doctor was. He was very angry. "Hey, line up, line up. You're not allowed to cut the line." In Shui Yilan's dictionary, he didn't know how to write the word line up. He didn't have time to pay attention to those people. He directly kicked open the door of the room, grabbed the doctor inside, and asked him to treat Ning Xuema. The doctor was pulled so hard that he almost fell on top of Ning Xuema, who was covered in blood. He also had a stubborn temper. He straightened his neck and angrily rebuked Shui Yilan's bandit behavior. He also said that he would only treat the people in the line. Even if the emperor came, he would have to follow his rules. Shui Yilan was furious. Naturally, he threatened him. However, the old man would rather die than break the rules. Shui Yilan flew into a rage. However, he didn't have any other way to deal with this kind of old man who could be killed but not humiliated. Naturally, he could use other methods to force the old man to submit. For example, he could use his bloody and thunderous methods to kill the old man's family and all the patients in the hospital. However, if Momo knew about it, she might not be happy. Moreover, it would take time to kill. What's more, he wasn't sure if the old man would be threatened by him. Helplessly, he suddenly knelt down in front of the old man. Illnesses have their priorities, and she really can't be delayed for even a moment. "I beg you, please save her." That old man was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. In fact, he had already seen Ning Xuema and knew that her life was indeed at stake, so she could not be delayed. Shui Yilan's kneeling gave him a way out, so he raised his head and agreed. She immediately went to see Ning Xuema. Shui Yilan stood up and slowly loosened his fingers that had formed a seal. This old man didn't know that he had actually managed to keep his life. Just now, if he had hesitated for even a moment, he would have been slapped by Shui Yilan, this great devil, to the point where he was even more miserable than Ning Xuema. The old man took Ning Xuema's pulse for a while and shook his head. Shui Yilan stared at him. "What do you think? Can she be saved?" "Madame Gouet is a case of miscarriage and hemorrhage. This case is extremely dangerous. 9 out of 10 people die. Madame Gouet has already lost a lot of blood. Her blood supply is insufficient, and her own blood is unstable." The old man shook his head and said professional terms. Shui Yilan was anxious. He grabbed the old man's collar and said, "Speak human language. Can she be saved or not?" The old man's face and neck turned red. "You're such a boorish man. How dare you threaten a doctor like this?" Shui Yilan's hands that were hidden in his sleeves loosened and clenched. He clenched and loosened again. It was the first time in his life that he had begged someone so humbly. It was the first time he had been so sullen. "I really care about her. Can she be saved?" Chapter 1483. For the sake of the patient, the old man decided not to argue with him, but he also explained, "She is close to the end of her life. I don't know if I can cure her, but I can only try my best. As long as I can stop the bleeding first, I will be halfway to success." Shui Yilan naturally agreed and urged him to do it quickly. Ning Xuema's bleeding made him frightened. He had no way to cure her, so he could only place his hopes on these human doctors. It turned out that with Ning Xuema's physique, the human doctors could not be trusted. The old man used his special skills, but there was still no sign of stopping the bleeding. Her face had already turned pale yellow, and she still hadn't opened her eyes. Shui Yilan did not know how much psychokinesis Shui Yilan had instilled into her, but she did not move again. In the end, the old man shook his head and simply gave Shui Yilan an honest advice. "Don't worry about it. Prepare for her funeral." Shui Yilan did not say anything. He did not want to waste any time, so he picked up Ning Xuema and left. The bold man who was angry at Shui Yilan for cutting the queue sneered at the side. "Who told you to cut the queue?" "Retribution." He wanted to say a few more words to vent his anger, but he could not say the rest of the words. Because Shui Yilan didn't even turn his head and flung his sleeves backwards, that person flew out like a rag bag. With a bang, he smashed through the roof of the clinic, causing chaos. But the chaos was far more than that. Shui Yilan also wouldn't give up after seeing just one doctor. He continued to rush into a few more, causing chaos in each of the medical centers. As time went by, he became more and more irritable. Several doctors and patients were directly slapped to the wall by him, almost becoming photos that were hung on the wall. This was still because he had scruples in his heart. Otherwise, none of these people would have survived. He did not know who had seen him 20 years ago. When he was asking for treatment, he trembled and shouted, "Zither demon in red. He's the red-clothed Zither demon." A single stone stirred up 1,000 wolves. The people of this capital city still had a deep impression of the red-clothed Zither demon who had stirred up a storm in the city back then. And so, word spread from 1 to 10, from 10 to 100, from 100 to 1,000. The entire Fenglai city knew about it. Naturally, it also alarmed the imperial palace. The government immediately deployed soldiers and generals to strengthen the guards in the palace. The Minister of Supreme Court also sent out various spies to investigate Shui Yilan's movements. This time, the spies didn't have to be too deliberate and immediately reported back. The red-clothed Guqin demon did not seem to have any evil intentions this time. He only wanted to seek medical treatment and cause trouble in various medical centers. He did not even wantonly kill people. Thus, the palace guards finally let out a sigh of relief and ordered them to pay close attention to the red-clothed Zither demon's movements. The various sects and clans also had many spies stationed in the city. Naturally, they also noticed this abnormality. Right after Shui Yilan left, the government officials and the informants of the various sects and clans entered the medical centers. All kinds of hustle and bustle. Shui Yilan had only been in the capital city for 4 hours, but everyone in the various sects and clans already knew about him. Countless self-proclaimed righteous sects and clans mobilized their troops to take advantage of this opportunity to get rid of him. It was useless. It was all useless. He carried Ning Xuema and crazily kicked more than 10 medical centers. However, each time he felt more and more despair. Ning Xuema, who was in his arms, was almost lifeless. She lay there limply as if she had already died. The streets were still bustling with activity. The surrounding shops were connected to one another. Countless people were laughing and chatting among themselves. Shui Yilan was still staggering along the streets. Chapter 1484. Shui Yilan staggered along the street. In his arms, Ning Xuema's blood was still dripping. Drop by drop, the blood fell on the blue stone as if red snowflakes were blooming. Perhaps the blood in her body was about to run out, but the speed of the blood flow had already slowed down a bit. Following his footsteps to the ground, her body was also getting colder and colder. She kept her eyes closed, never waking up. There seemed to be tears at the corners of her eyes, but they were already dried by the wind, leaving only a little trace. The corners of his lips were slightly hooked, as if he was smiling, a smile of relief. Perhaps the name of the red-clothed Zither demon was too well known, but at this time many shops had closed their doors. Many people also hid in various shops, but they also watched his figure from various hidden places as he walked past. Even if there were some passers-by who had to walk for one reason or another, they all stuck close to the wall, and then curiously watched him. It's useless. She's clearly a lamp that has run out of oil. There's no need to save her. This old man feels that if you carry her and run wildly, it's better to prepare a coffin for her. Young man, please restrain your grief. She should be a martial artist, right? If she was an ordinary person, she would have already died after losing so much blood. She's only left with her last breath, but she's just struggling at death's door. Forgive this one for being powerless. He had brought her to see all the doctors in the various medical centers, whether they were famous divine doctors or ordinary quacks, but none of them could give him any hope. None of them could wake her up. In this life, Shui Yilan had always been the most powerful. Except for the devil ancestor and Shui Yimo, he had never knelt to anyone else. But this time, in order to beg those people to save Ning Xuema, in order to fight for a bit of hope, he didn't know how many people he had knelt to. As long as there was one person who could save her, even if he had to kowtow 100 times to that person, it was fine. But no one could give him hope. Why was it like this? Why was it like this? His Momo had lived so miserably in her previous life and died so miserably. Could it be that she was going to walk the same path as her previous life in this life? If this was God's retribution to the devil, then Momo hadn't done many bad things. She had even saved many people. She had only repaid her debts, but she hadn't done anything truly evil. Why was God tormenting her like this? If this was retribution for the devil, then Shui Yilan must have done more evil than her, right? Why didn't the damned heavens come for him? Why did she have to bully his Momo? A murderous and cold aura emanated from his body. The wind lifted the corners of his robe and made it flutter. He had even sought out the imperial physician who worked in the inner court of the imperial palace, but the result was still hopeless. He hugged her and could only watch as her body became colder and colder, and her breath became weaker and weaker. Momo, if something really happens to you this time, I'll bury everyone in this city with you, Shui Yilan said fiercely. But his threatening words had no effect on the dying Ning Xuema. She didn't respond at all. Momo. Shui Yilan's voice was filled with pain. What do you want me to do? Tell me, what do you want me to do? I don't want you to die. He blankly looked ahead. The street had already become very deserted, but he couldn't see any way out. His future was gloomy. Chapter 1485. Shui Yilan, do you really want to save her? Perhaps we have a way. A group of people suddenly appeared and blocked his path. Shui Yilan raised his head and looked at those people. It was a group of 8 people, and each one of them was astute and valiant. Although they were all ugly, each one of them was an expert. Shui Yilan's eyes narrowed slightly. Although he didn't recognize them, he recognized their clothes. They were from the second largest cultivation sect in Jianghu, the Wind Cloud sect. There were many talented people in this sect, and some of them were extremely skilled in medicine. They were even famous in Jianghu. Perhaps they really had a way. Shui Yilan's eyes flashed. He stared at them and repeated, "Do you really have a way?" His voice was slightly trembling. One of the short-bearded people immediately nodded. "Perhaps. We have to see to know." Shui Yilan's eyes lit up. He was like a drowning person grabbing onto a piece of driftwood, unwilling to let go no matter what. He raised his sleeve and a soft bed immediately appeared in front of him. He carefully placed Ning Xuema on it. "Take a look. If you can save her, I can give you countless mountains of gold and silver." The short-bearded man slowly walked over and said with a smile, "We don't care about mountains of gold and silver, but we want you to do something. If you do it, I can try to save her." "What is it?" The short-bearded man stared at him and said word by word, "Kowtow to us a few times on the street and shout that you, Shui Yilan, will always listen to the orders of the Wind Cloud sect." Shui Yilan stiffened. He raised his head and looked at him. His thin lips slightly pursed. "What? You don't want to? Then you can just watch her die." The short-bearded man sneered. Then he pulled his companion. "All right, we're leaving. Don't worry about him anymore. If he doesn't want the opportunity that was sent to him, then this girl should die. Others can't do anything about it, right?" His companions naturally echoed loudly and laughed. "I can kneel, but you have to promise to save her," Shui Yilan said slowly. The short-bearded man and the others looked at each other. The short-bearded man laughed. "Okay, sure. Then kowtow to me 3 times as a deposit." These people obviously had ill intentions. They didn't think that a great demon like Shui Yilan would kneel down in public. They just wanted to take the opportunity to humiliate him. Unexpectedly, Shui Yilan's eyes deepened when he heard this. "Good. You must keep your word." He actually knelt down in front of the short-bearded man. The short-bearded man was stunned, his mouth slightly agape. He watched as Shui Yilan knelt down and kowtowed, and a fierce look flashed through his eyes. He quickly made a few hand signals to the other brothers, and they immediately dispersed silently. When Shui Yilan kowtowed for the second time, 7 of the 8 suddenly attacked him together. Another one pounced towards Ning Xuema, who was on the soft bed. 7 different colored rays of light shot towards Shui Yilan from different directions. These people were obviously used to working together. They didn't give Shui Yilan any time to react. Moreover, they were all killing moves. The 7 rays of light shot down at the same time, enveloping Shui Yilan's entire body. If there were people watching from the side, they wouldn't be able to see his body. Bang! After an earth-shattering sound, the 7 rays of light exploded with a brilliance that was even brighter than lightning. The 7 people were pleasantly surprised. They didn't see Shui Yilan dodge. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.